You probably think you know the Titanic story, the iceberg, the lifeboats, the band playing as the ship went down. But here's what nobody tells you. 700 people boarded that ship in third class, and most of them thought they'd won the lottery. Here's what life was actually like for the poorest passengers on the most famous ship that ever sank. If you're listening to this late at night, maybe winding down after a long day, I'd love it if you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling me where you're tuning in from and what time it is there. Always curious who's out there listening to history at odd hours. Now settle into your pillow, pull your blanket up a little closer, because we're about to go somewhere very different from where you are right now. We're going back to April 1912, and you're not going to be watching from the outside, you're going to live it. The tender boat rocks beneath your feet as you stare up at something impossible. You've seen big things before. You grew up in Cork, where the harbour brought all sorts of vessels. But this thing floating in Queenstown Harbour isn't a ship. It's a floating city. It's a cathedral lying on its side. It's every building in your village stacked on top of each other and then doubled. The Titanic. Even the name sounds like something from mythology. Like something that shouldn't exist in the real world, in your world, in the world of potato farms and leaky cottage roofs, and your mother's rosary beads clicking in the evening prayers. But here it is, real as the salt spray hitting your face, real as the 23 pounds sewn into the lining of your coat, real as the inspection card in your pocket that says you're healthy enough, clean enough, acceptable enough to board this marvel and sail to America. Your name is Cillian Brennan. You're 19 years old. You've never been more than 30 miles from the townland where you were born, and in about 15 minutes you're going to walk onto a ship that cost more to build than every farm in County Cork combined. The tender America carries about 120 of you, mostly Irish, mostly young, mostly terrified in that particular way where you can't stop grinning, because if you stop grinning you might cry, and if you start crying you might never stop. Your cousin Padraig stands beside you, gripping the railing so hard his knuckles have gone white. He's 2 years older than you, supposedly the sensible one, the one who planned this whole journey. Right now he looks like he might be sick over the side. "Would you look at it?" he breathes. You can't look anywhere else. The ship is painted black along the hull with a white superstructure rising above it like cliffs of Dover made of steel and glass. 4 massive funnels pierce the sky, 3 of them venting steam in lazy white plumes. The 4th is just for show, you'll learn later. The designers thought it looked more impressive with 4. Everything about this ship is about looking impressive. That's what the White Star Line does. They don't compete on speed. Cunard has them beat there with the Mauretania and Lusitania. No, White Star competes on size and luxury. They want you to feel like you're staying in the finest hotel in the world while you cross the Atlantic. Even in third class. Especially in third class, actually. Because here's something they don't tell you in the history books. The money wasn't really in first class. Oh, those millionaires paid handsomely for their suites. But there weren't that many of them. The real profit came from the hundreds upon hundreds of emigrants packed into the lower decks. People like you. People paying £7 and a few shillings for a passage to a new life. That's about $900 in today's money. Not nothing. Your family scraped for 2 years to put that together. Your sister Mary sent money from Boston, where she works as a domestic. Your mother sold the good cow. Your father took odd jobs in cove loading cargo, the same cargo that's probably sitting in the hold of this very ship. All so you could stand here on this tender boat, staring up at the largest moving object ever created by human hands, and feel simultaneously like the luckiest person alive and the smallest speck of nothing in the universe. The boarding process at Queenstown is chaos organised into lines. You'd already been through the first inspection that morning at the offices of James Scott and Company on the quay. A doctor had checked your scalp for lice, your eyes for trachoma, your skin for any sign of infectious disease. He'd asked you to cough, asked you to walk across the room, asked if anyone in your family had consumption. All of this because America didn't want you if you were sick. The US immigration laws were clear. Bring disease across the Atlantic and you'd be turned away at Ellis Island, sent back on the next ship at the shipping company's expense. So White Star did the filtering before you ever got on board. Better to reject you in Ireland than pay for your round trip. You passed, obviously. You're young and healthy and strong from years of farm work. The doctor barely glanced at you before stamping your papers and moving on. But now, as the tender pulls alongside the Titanic's massive black hull, there's another inspection. Ship's officers in crisp white uniforms stand at the gangway checking tickets, checking inspection cards, checking that the person boarding matches the person on the manifest. Your heart hammers against your ribs, not because you're doing anything wrong, but because this is it. This is the moment. Once you walk through that door, you're really doing this. You're really leaving. Ireland will become something behind you, something you can only reach through letters and memories and the $42 it costs to cross back the other way. The line shuffles forward. Someone's playing music somewhere. An Uilleann piper named Eugene Daly, you'll learn later, playing A Nation Once Again as a farewell to the old country. The tune floats across the water, mixing with the crying of gulls and the chug of the tender's engine and the overwhelming mechanical thrum of the Titanic herself. Your turn comes. You hand over your ticket. The officer glances at it, glances at your inspection card, glances at you. Name? Cillian Brennan, sir. Destination? New York, then Boston. My sister's there. He nods, stamps something, hands your documents back, points to a doorway in the ship's side. 3rd class. Follow the corridor, take the stairs down. Steward will show you to your berth. And just like that, you're walking into history. The gangway door is massive, built to be watertight. You notice the locking mechanisms as you pass through, big metal dogs that would seal this entrance against the sea. Everything on this ship seems designed to keep the ocean out, to deny the fundamental reality that you're floating in water deep enough to swallow mountains. Inside, the corridor is narrow but clean, white-painted steel with the occasional timber partition. You're deep in the ship's belly here, down on E-deck, and immediately you notice the thrumming. It's the engines. They're not running full speed yet, the ship's still at anchor, but you can feel them in your bones, a constant vibration that says this thing is alive, that all those tons of steel have a heartbeat. A steward in White Star livery directs you aft. That means toward the back of the ship you learn. Forward is front, port is left, starboard is right. You're picking up the vocabulary already, feeling it settle into your brain alongside the Gaelic and English that live there. Mind the potato room, the steward says as you pass a storage area. That's what they call it anyway. Stores for your meals, that is. You barely register the words. You're too busy staring. The corridor is longer than any hallway you've ever seen. It runs the length of the ship, or near enough. They call it Scotland Road, you'll discover. The crew's nickname for the main 3rd-class corridor, borrowed from a famous street in Liverpool. It's wide enough for 2 people to pass comfortably. lined with doors on either side leading to cabins and storage rooms and service areas. And it's busy. People everywhere, speaking languages you recognize and languages you don't. Irish, English, Swedish maybe, something Slavic, something that sounds like Italian. Families with children, young men like yourself, women clutching bags and looking around with the same overwhelmed expression you can feel on your own face. This is what third class is. Not the unwashed masses from the propaganda posters, not the huddled refugees of political cartoons, just people, ordinary people, some poor as church mice, yes, having sold everything they owned to buy this ticket. But others are tradespeople, cobblers, carpenters, tailors, people with skills and professions who simply can't find enough work in the old country. People like your father, who's a slater by trade, makes roofs, good at it too. But there's only so many roofs to be made in County Cork, and too many men who can make them. He'd have come himself if he could have afforded it. Instead, he sent you and Padraig to scout the land, to establish yourselves, to send back money and maybe someday bring the whole family over. The steward leads you down a stairwell, then another. The ship is a maze. Decks upon decks, each one designated by a letter. You started on E, went down to F, and now you're heading toward the aft section where families and single women are berthed. Wait. You're not a family. You're not a single woman. You're a young man. Why are they putting you back here? Cabins full up forward, the steward explains when you ask. You and your cousin will be in with a family. The Brennans, it says here. He checks his manifest. Any relation? Not that I know of, you say. Brennan's a common name. Could be coincidence. Well, you'll have the upper bunks. Family's got the lowers. 2 children, I think. Try not to step on anyone in the night. He stops at a door. Cabin E45, or something like that. The numbers blur together in your memory already. Here you are. Supper's at 5:30. Dining saloons on F deck, forward. You'll hear the bugle. And then he's gone, off to settle the next batch of confused emigrants, and you're standing in the doorway of your home for the next 6 days. The cabin is small. That's the first thing you notice. It's maybe 10 feet long and 7 feet wide, with 2 sets of bunk beds built into the walls. A small wash basin sits in the corner, ceramic with a tank above it for water. Not running water, you realise. You'll have to refill that tank yourself if you want to wash. White-painted pine panels line the walls. The floor is some kind of red linoleum, easy to clean. A single electric light hangs from the ceiling. You've used electric lights before, a few times, in the bigger shops in Cork. But having one in your own room feels luxurious beyond measure. The family sharing your cabin is already there. A woman in her 30s, worn-looking but with kind eyes. 2 children, a boy of about 8 and a girl of maybe 5. The woman's husband is conspicuously absent. He's forward with the other men, she explains when she catches you looking. They don't let families stay together if there's not room enough. Something about the immigration laws. Have to keep the men separate in case any try to sneak through without inspection. Her name is Margaret Brennan. No relation, as far as you can determine. She's from Limerick, heading to meet her brother in Chicago. Her husband Daniel took a berth in the forward section with the single men, sharing a cabin with 5 strangers. It's only 6 days, she says, and you can tell she's said it to herself many times. We'll see him at meals, and on deck. It's just for sleeping. But there's something in her eyes. Something that knows how strange this is. How unnatural to board a ship as a family and immediately be scattered to opposite ends. The children don't seem to mind. They're too busy being amazed by everything. The electric light, the porthole, the way the whole room vibrates gently with the engine's heartbeat. You throw your bag onto the upper bunk. It's not much of a bag. A change of clothes. Some food for the journey, though you've been told meals are included. A photograph of your family that your mother pressed into your hands at the last moment. A bottle of holy water that she made you promise to keep safe. Padraig takes the other upper bunk. He's already pulling out his rosary, settling in for prayers. That's Padraig, always the devout one. You're supposed to be devout too, of course. Everyone is, back home. But you've always been more interested in what's coming than what's already been said. What's coming is America. What's coming is New York Harbor and the Statue of Liberty and Ellis Island, and then a train to Boston where Mary will be waiting. What's coming is work. Hard work, probably. Maybe in construction, or on the docks, or wherever they'll have a young Irishman with strong arms and a willingness to do what needs doing. What's coming is a life. You lie back on your bunk and feel the ship move beneath you. It's subtle. The Titanic is so massive that the small harbour waves barely touch her. But there's gentle rocking, a rhythm, like being in a giant cradle. Like the whole Atlantic is swaying you toward your future. The walls are thin. You can hear everything. Coughing from the cabin next door. A baby crying somewhere down the corridor. Footsteps on the deck above. The ever-present engine vibration that makes your bones hum. Back home, you shared a cottage with your entire family. Privacy wasn't a thing you expected or really understood. But this is different. Here you're surrounded by strangers. People you'll never see again after New York. People who are all going through the exact same thing you are. This strange mix of terror and excitement. This leap into the unknown. A whistle blows somewhere above, long and loud. The ship shudders slightly. "We're moving," Margaret says quietly, "and you are. You can feel it now. The slow turn of the great vessel, the awakening of her engines to full power. Through the porthole you watch the Irish coast begin to slide past. Green hills, stone walls, the spire of a church in the distance, Queenstown, Cove, as you've always called it. The last bit of Ireland you'll ever see, maybe. The last bit of the only world you've ever known. Someone in another cabin starts singing. A shorn nose, an old-style lament. The voice is high and clear and achingly beautiful. It floats through the thin walls and the narrow corridors and the whole vast humming machinery of the ship. And just like that, you're crying, not sobbing, just silent tears running down your face as Ireland disappears behind you. Padraig's crying too. You can hear him trying to hide it in his bunk above the children. Margaret is holding her daughter close, face buried in the little girl's hair. Everyone is crying. In this cabin, in the cabins around you, probably in cabins all over the third-class sections. 700 people and their collective heartbreak, floating away from everything they've ever loved. But you're also smiling, because tomorrow you'll wake up in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, on the largest ship in the world, heading toward a future that could be anything, absolutely anything at all. The holy water bottle presses against your chest where you've tucked it into your shirt. Your mother's voice echoes in your memory, the last thing she said before you boarded the tender. Don't forget where you come from, but don't be afraid of where you're going. The singing continues. The ship moves on. The sun is setting somewhere beyond your porthole, painting the water gold and rose and purple. This is the beginning. This is third class on the Titanic, and for all its cramped spaces and thin walls and separation from your loved ones, for all the vibration and the noise and the strange food you'll eat, and the stranger faces you'll meet, This is also the most extraordinary thing that's ever happened to you. You have no idea what's coming. None of you do, but that's for later, much later. Right now, you're 19 years old and you're sailing to America, and the whole world is opening up before you like a flower, finally seeing the sun. Right now, you're going to close your eyes and let the rocking of the ship carry you toward dreams of wide streets and tall buildings and your sister's face when she sees you at the station. Right now, you're going to sleep. The thin mattress beneath you isn't much softer than your bed at home. The blanket is wool, rough against your chin. There's no sheet, no pillowcase. You brought your own, like the steward suggested, though most of your fellow passengers simply make do without. But it's warm, and it's clean, and when you wake up in the morning, you'll be hundreds of miles from Ireland and hundreds of miles closer to everything you've ever dreamed of. The singing has stopped. The children below are breathing slowly, deeply, already asleep. Margaret whispers a prayer in the darkness. Padraig's rosary beads click softly, a sound like rain on a window, and the Titanic sails on, carrying you and 700 other dreamers across the dark Atlantic, toward the morning that's waiting just beyond the horizon. You wake up to the sound of someone being sick, not in your cabin, thank God, but close, very close, through the thin timber wall to your left, close enough that you can hear every heave and splash and groan. The poor soul sounds like they're dying in there. Seasickness. You'll learn the word properly soon enough, though you've heard of it before. Some people just can't handle the motion of a ship. Their bodies rebel against the constant rocking, the endless rise and fall that never quite stops no matter how massive the vessel. You're lucky. Your stomach is fine. A bit hungry maybe, but nothing churning or threatening to make an appearance. Padraig, on the other hand, looks green. He's gripping the edge of his bunk like he's afraid he'll fall off if he lets go. You all right? He shakes his head slowly, very slowly. Moving too fast seems to make it worse. I'll be grand, he manages. Just need to find my sea legs. That's what they call it. Finding your sea legs. The process of adjusting to life on a moving surface, training your body to compensate for the pitch and roll without thinking about it. Some people find them in a few hours, others take days, and some poor unfortunates never find them at all and spend the entire crossing hunched over buckets. Below you, the children are already awake. Little William is telling his sister Mary about a dream he had, something about horses made of clouds. Mary isn't impressed. She wants breakfast. Margaret is up and dressed, looking tired but determined. Women on this ship, especially mothers, don't have the luxury of lying in bed feeling sorry for themselves. There are children to feed and clothes to sort and a whole day of keeping little ones entertained in a small space to look forward to. Morning, she says when she sees you stirring. Sleep well? You did, actually. Better than you expected. The constant engine vibration that seemed so strange last night has become almost soothing now, like a heartbeat, like the ship is alive beneath you, carrying you along. Not bad, you tell her. Bit noisy though. She laughs. It's not really funny, but she laughs anyway, because what else can you do? The noise is something else. Even now, in what passes for morning quiet, you can hear everything. The family in the cabin next door arguing about something. A baby crying somewhere down the corridor. Footsteps on the deck above. Crew members going about their business. The endless mechanical rhythm of the engines. And of course, the person still being sick through the wall. The cabin walls are made of thin timber panels. You realise now that you're looking at them in daylight, or what passes for daylight down here on E-deck. The single electric bulb gives everything a yellowish cast that makes it hard to tell what time it actually is. The walls don't go all the way to the ceiling. There's a gap at the top, maybe a foot or so, that opens right out into the corridor. The idea, you suppose, is ventilation, air circulation. Down here in the bowels of the ship, you'd suffocate without some way for fresh air to move around. But it also means privacy is basically a joke. Every cough, every sneeze, every whispered conversation floats out through that gap and mingles with all the other coughs and sneezes and whispered conversations from all the other cabins. It's like living in one big room that's been divided up by curtains that don't quite close. Back home, you lived in a 2-room cottage with your parents and 3 siblings. Privacy wasn't exactly abundant there either, but at least the walls were stone. At least sounds didn't travel quite so freely. Here you might as well be sleeping in the same room as 100 strangers. Padraig makes it out of bed, moving carefully like someone walking on ice. He needs to use the toilet, he mumbles. Where is the toilet? That's a good question. There isn't one in the cabin, obviously. Third class doesn't get private bathrooms. What third class gets is communal water closets scattered along the corridors, shared by everyone in this section of the ship. And for bathing, 2 bathtubs. That's it. 2 bathtubs for all 700-odd third-class passengers. One for the men, one for the women. You want a bath, you sign up with a steward and take your turn. Maybe once during the whole crossing if you're lucky. But here's the thing. Most people don't really care. Not because they're dirty or don't value cleanliness, but because in 1912, the idea of bathing every day is actually kind of strange. Once a week is normal for working people. Once a month isn't unusual. There are even people who believe bathing too often is bad for you, that it opens up your pores to disease and washes away the natural oils that protect your skin. So 2 bathtubs for 700 people? That's fine. That's plenty. More than most of these passengers would have had access to at home. The water closets, though, those you'll need to visit regularly. Padraig staggers off in search of one, following the signs posted in the corridor. They're in English, which is fine for you. But you've already noticed that plenty of your fellow passengers don't speak English. Swedes, Finns, Italians, Syrians, Chinese. People from places you've barely heard of, all crammed together in this floating maze, all trying to figure out how to navigate a ship that's bigger than most villages. While Padraig is gone, you decide to wash up. The ceramic basin in the corner of your cabin is big and solid, white with a bluish tinge. Above it sits a water tank that you can fill from one of the taps in the corridor. It's not running water in the modern sense. You have to actively go fetch water and pour it in. But it works. You splash some water on your face. It's cold, of course. No hot water for third class, not without a lot of effort anyway. The cold wakes you up, though. Clears away the last fog of sleep. In the small mirror above the basin, you study your face. You look the same as you did yesterday. The same as you did a week ago, a month ago. But something's different. You can see it in your own eyes. You're not the same person who left Cork. You're already changing, already becoming whoever you're going to be on the other side of this ocean. Your cabin mate Margaret has taken the children to find breakfast. She invited you to come along, but you want to wait for Padraig. He's your cousin. You're in this together. You should stick together, at least for the important things like meals. While you wait, you take a closer look at your surroundings. The cabin really is clean, spotlessly clean. It looks almost clinical, like a hospital room or a doctor's office. White painted walls, that red linoleum floor, everything designed to be easy to wipe down and disinfect. No fabric hangings where dust could collect. No carpets where dirt could hide. There's a reason for this, you know. Disease. The shipping companies are terrified of disease. One outbreak of measles or typhoid or, God forbid, cholera, and the whole ship becomes a floating coffin. Sickness can rip through a crowded vessel in days, killing dozens, turning a profitable voyage into a disaster. That's why they inspected you so carefully before boarding, checking your scalp for lice, your eyes for signs of infection, asking about your family's medical history. America doesn't want sick immigrants. The shipping company doesn't want dead passengers, so everything is designed to minimize the risk. Clean surfaces, separated classes, an actual hospital ward on board, somewhere toward the stern, staffed by ship's doctors and matrons who can isolate anyone showing symptoms before it spreads. Most vaccinations haven't been invented yet, you realize. The great medical breakthroughs are still decades away. If something bad starts spreading, all they can do is quarantine the sick and hope for the best. It's a sobering thought. You're trapped on this ship for 6 days with hundreds of strangers, any one of whom might be carrying something deadly without even knowing it. But then again, the same was true in your village. The same was true anywhere humans gathered together in groups. At least here, they're trying to prevent it. At least here, everything is clean. Padraig returns looking slightly less green. The walk to the water closet and back seems to have helped. Or maybe the worst of the seasickness has passed. Either way, he's ready for breakfast. The two of you make your way through the corridor, following the flow of other passengers heading in the same direction. Scotland Road, they call this main passageway. It runs almost the entire length of the ship on E-deck, connecting the forward sections where the single men sleep to the aft sections, where families and single women are housed. It's busy this morning. Packed, actually, because everyone's going to the same place. The dining saloon on F-deck, where breakfast is being served between 8 and 10. You pass doors to other cabins, some open, some closed. Through the open ones you catch glimpses of people getting ready for their day. A young woman brushing her hair in front of a mirror. An older man reading from a prayer book. Children bouncing on bunks while their mother tells them to stop, they'll break something. And you hear things. So many things. Conversations in languages you don't recognize. Babies fussing. Someone playing a harmonica. Badly. The constant undercurrent of the engines, so present now that you almost don't notice it anymore. The people around you are not what you expected. You knew there would be immigrants, of course. That's what third class is for, mainly. People leaving Europe for America, chasing the dream of a better life. But somewhere in your head, you'd pictured a homogeneous mass. Poor people, desperate people, people without options. The reality is more complicated. Yes, there are people here who clearly have nothing. You can see it in their clothes, patched and repatched, in their faces, thin and worn, in the way they clutch their bundles like someone might try to steal them at any moment. But there are also people who look almost respectable. Men in press suits with starched collars, women in nice dresses with proper hats, families who clearly aren't rich but aren't quite poor either. People who had enough to book passage, who could have afforded second class if they'd wanted but chose to save the money instead. Tradespeople, you realise, cobblers and carpenters and bakers and tailors, professionals who know their craft and can do it well. They're not fleeing poverty so much as chasing opportunity. There's work in America, good work, better pay than the old country offers, so they've packed up their skills and their families and booked passage on the finest ship in the world. Because that's what the Titanic is, even in third class. The finest ship in the world. The White Star Line made sure of that. Third-class accommodations here are better than second-class on most other vessels. Private cabins instead of open dormitories. Meals included instead of bring your own food. Electric lights. Running water in the corridors. Actual toilets instead of buckets. For many passengers, this is the most comfortable journey they've ever taken. More comfortable than their homes back in Europe. More comfortable than anything they're likely to have in America for the first few years. These 6 days at sea might actually be a vacation, the only vacation some of them will ever have. That thought sits strangely in your chest. A vacation. You'd never considered it that way, but look around. Nobody has to work. 3 meals a day are provided. There are common rooms for socializing, open decks for fresh air, and absolutely nothing required of you except to show up when the bugle sounds and be patient while the ship carries you across the water. 6 days of rest before the hard work of building a new life begins. You could do worse. The stairwell down to F-deck is crowded. People moving in both directions, some coming up from breakfast, others heading down. You stick close to Padrig, not wanting to lose him in the shuffle. Getting separated in this maze could mean missing your meal entirely, and your stomach is making increasingly insistent demands. Near the bottom of the stairs, you almost collide with a man coming up. "Watch yourself there," he says, and then his face changes. "Padrig? Padrig Brennan?" Your cousin's eyes go wide. "Seamus? Seamus O'Brien?" The 2 men grab each other's arms, grinning like idiots. You've never seen this Seamus in your life, but apparently Padrig knows him from somewhere. Childhood, it turns out. They grew up in neighbouring townlands before Seamus's family moved to Galway. "I didn't know you were on this ship," Padrig says. "Same. When did you board?" "Queenstown. Yesterday." "Ah, we came on at Southampton. Been aboard 2 days now." Seamus notices you standing there awkwardly. "Who's this?" "My cousin, Cillian. He's coming with me to Boston." You shake hands. Seamus has a strong grip and an open face. The kind of person you instinctively trust, though you've known him for all of 30 seconds. "Boston, is it? We're headed to New York ourselves. My sister's there already. Sent us money for the crossing." He gestures vaguely upward. "I'm bunked forward with the other men. Cabin's got 8 of us in there, all strangers except me brother. But it's not bad. Clean. Food's good." 8 in one cabin? Seamus shrugs. "Better than a dormitory. Better than the ship we looked at before this one. That one had all steerage in one big room, sleeping on shelves like cargo. This is luxury, I'm telling you." He's right, you know. You've heard stories about the old immigrant ships. The coffin ships, they called some of them, during the famine years. People packed in so tight they could barely move. Disease spreading like wildfire. Bodies thrown overboard when they died mid-crossing. Compared to that, Titanic's 3rd class is a palace. Seamus has to go, meeting someone on deck, but he promises to find you later, catch up properly. Share a drink if they can find one. Padrig waves as he disappears up the stairs, then turns to you with the first real smile you've seen since boarding. "Can you believe it? Seamus O'Brien. I haven't seen him in 10 years. Small world, you think? Or maybe it's a big world that's getting smaller. All these people from all these places, all funneling onto ships, all heading to the same promised land. You're bound to run into familiar faces eventually. The dining saloon is straight ahead now. You can smell it before you see it. Food smells, breakfast smells. Your stomach growls loud enough that Padrig hears it and laughs. "Come on then, let's eat." You follow him through the doors and into the noise and bustle of 700 people trying to start their day. The journey continues. The ocean stretches endlessly in all directions, invisible from down here but present in every rock and sway of the deck beneath your feet. Somewhere far ahead, still impossibly distant, America is waiting. Your sister is waiting. Your whole future is waiting. But right now, breakfast is waiting, and that's enough. The bugle that called you down here is still echoing in your memory, a bright brassy sound that cut through all the noise of the corridors. You'll hear it 3 times a day for the next 5 days. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, the rhythm of shipboard life measured in meals and the spaces between them. You find an empty seat at one of the long tables. A stranger sits across from you, an older man with a weathered face and kind eyes. He nods in greeting but doesn't speak. Finnish, you'll learn later. Doesn't have much English. But he smiles, and you smile back. Because that's what you do on a ship like this, surrounded by people you don't know, sharing tables and corridors and thin walls and everything else. You smile, you nod, you make space for each other. You're all in the same boat, literally. All 700 of you, crammed into the lower decks of the largest ship ever built, all hoping for something better on the other side. The first morning of your new life is just beginning. The dining saloon is bigger than your church back home. That's the first thing that hits you when you walk through the doors, the sheer size of the space. You've never been in a room this large that wasn't a cathedral or a marketplace, and this one is underground. Well, underwater. Below the waterline of a ship buried in the steel belly of this impossible floating city. Long wooden tables stretch from one end to the other, each one big enough to seat 20 people or more. The chairs are freestanding, not bolted down, which surprises you until you realize why. People need to be able to move around, to slide in and out, to make room for the constant flow of passengers coming and going. Because there's a lot of coming and going. 700 third-class passengers and a room that holds maybe 400. They do it in sittings. First sitting, second sitting. You're in the first one, apparently, which means you get the fresh bread and the hot porridge before the crowd picks everything over. The room is split in two by a watertight bulkhead running through the middle. One of those doors that can seal shut if the ship starts flooding. Strange to think about, eating your breakfast next to a reminder that things can go wrong at sea. But you don't think about it for long. The food smells too good. At the far end of the room, near the wall, you notice something funny. A single table, smaller than the others, set facing the bulkhead. Table 17, someone calls it. Just 2 seats, both of them staring directly at the steel wall instead of out into the room. That's the antisocial table, Nora will tell you later, laughing. For the ones who can't stand company. Can you imagine? Crossing the Atlantic with your nose 2 feet from a wall? Someone must want it, though. Someone must prefer silence to conversation. You can almost understand that. Almost. There are moments on this ship when the noise of 700 people feels like it might crush you, when you'd give anything for a quiet corner where nobody expects you to talk. But not at breakfast. At breakfast, you want to be surrounded by life. The walls are bare steel painted white. You can see the rivets. You can see the beams that hold everything together. It's not decorated like you imagine first class must be, with wood panelling and fancy light fixtures. But it's not ugly either. There's something honest about it. Something that says, this is a ship. We're not pretending it's anything else, but we've made it as nice as we can for you. And they have. There are posters on the walls advertising other ships, White Star Line vessels mostly, the Olympic, which is Titanic's sister ship, nearly identical in design, but also Holland America and Atlantic Transport Line, which confuses you until someone explains that they're all owned by the same company. Some American billionaire named Morgan bought them all up, trying to control the North Atlantic shipping trade. It didn't work out the way he planned, but that's a story for another time. Right now, the only story that matters is the story of what you're about to eat. You find seats at one of the long tables, you and Padraig. The Finnish man from before ends up across from you again, plus a young Swedish couple who keep stealing glances at each other like newlyweds, plus an older woman travelling alone who turns out to be from Galway, heading to meet her son in Philadelphia. The Galway woman's name is Nora. She's probably 50, though it's hard to tell. Life ages people differently depending on how hard it's been. Her face has lines that speak of worry and work, but her eyes are bright and her smile is quick. "First crossing?" she asks, and you nod. "Third for me," she says. Back and forth, back and forth. My Patrick went over 10 years ago, established himself, brought over his wife. Now it's my turn to see the grandchildren before I get too old to make the trip. Third crossing. You can't imagine doing this 3 times. Once feels like plenty. Once feels like a miracle. But people do it all the time, you realise. This isn't the edge of the world. It's just a big puddle with really good boats now. People cross it like they cross the Irish Sea. Not casually exactly, but not as if it's the end of everything either. The steward arrives with breakfast. He's wearing a white jacket with a numbered badge on his arm. Very official, very proper, and he's carrying a tray loaded with more food than you've seen in one place since Christmas dinner 2 years ago. Porridge first, big steaming bowls of oatmeal with milk on the side. You haven't had oatmeal this thick and creamy since you were a child, and your grandmother made it special on feast days. The stuff you eat at home is thin and watery, stretched to feed as many mouths as possible. This is the real thing. This is luxury. Then come the eggs, scrambled, piled on a plate like little yellow clouds. Back home, eggs are for selling. You keep chickens, sure, but those eggs go to market to buy flour and salt and the other things you can't grow yourself. Eating eggs for breakfast is something rich people do, or apparently something third-class passengers on the Titanic do. Smoked herrings appear. You've never had them before. Padraig eyes them suspiciously. The Finnish man across from you lights up like someone just handed him gold. He says something in his language, clearly delighted, and starts eating with genuine pleasure. Bread and butter. Fresh bread, not the hard stuff you packed for the journey. Soft and warm and slathered with actual butter, not the margarine substitute you're used to. And marmalade, orange marmalade in little pots, which you've seen in shop windows but never actually tasted. You spread some on your bread. Take a bite. Close your eyes. Sweet and bitter at the same time. Tangy. Bright. Nothing like anything you've ever eaten before. Good, isn't it? Nora laughs at your expression. Wait until you try the plum pudding at dinner. That'll really knock your socks off. There's tea, of course, strong and hot, and coffee for those who prefer it. You've had coffee a few times before, at the hotel in Cove where your father sometimes picked up work. It tastes like burned earth, in your opinion, but plenty of people seem to love it. The Swedish couple across from you are both drinking it, adding sugar from a bowl in the middle of the table. Sugar, just sitting there, free for the taking. You put some in your tea, then a little more. It's the sweetest cup you've ever had, and you can't help grinning like an idiot. This is third class, the cheapest passage on the ship, and you're eating better than you've eaten in months, maybe years. Around you, The room hums with conversation in a dozen languages. You catch fragments of English, Irish, something Nordic, what might be Italian or maybe Greek. The stewards move between tables like dancers, balancing trays, refilling cups, answering questions with patient smiles. Not everyone knows what to do with the food. You watch a family at the next table puzzle over the smoked herrings, the children poking at them like they might be alive. Their mother eventually takes a cautious bite, chews thoughtfully, then nods approval. The children follow her lead. First times everywhere. First time eating this. First time in a room this big. First time being waited on by uniformed stewards who call you sir even though you're a 19-year-old farm boy with dirt still under your fingernails. The notice at the bottom of the menu catches your eye. Someone's left a printed card on the table, listing the day's meals. At the very bottom, in small type, any complaint respecting the food supplied, want of attention, or incivility should be at once reported to the purser or chief steward. For purposes of identification, each steward wears a numbered badge on the arm. Incivility. You've never seen that word before, but you can guess what it means. They're promising to treat you with respect, even down here in third class. They're saying that if anyone is rude to you, you can report them and something will actually happen. That feels strange. Revolutionary almost. You're used to being the bottom of the heap, the farmer's son, the Irish boy, the person who gets out of the way when someone more important needs to pass. And here's a ship that's promising in writing to be civil to you. Maybe that's just good business. Happy passengers tell their friends. Third-class people write home to their families, and if they say the Titanic treated them well, maybe those families book passage on White Star ships too. The money's not in first class, remember. The money's in volume, in hundreds of emigrants making the crossing every week, choosing White Star over Cunard over the German lines. But still, it feels like something. The Swedish newlyweds are named Eric and Ingrid. They don't have much English, but enough to communicate the basics. Married 2 weeks ago, heading to Minnesota where Eric has family. He's a carpenter. She was a seamstress. They're young, younger than you maybe, and so clearly in love that it almost hurts to look at them. They're sitting shoulder to shoulder even though the bench is plenty wide. His hand keeps finding hers under the table. She laughs at everything he says, even when it's not funny. The universal language of new love, spoken by humans everywhere regardless of what words come out of their mouths. Nora from Galway tells stories about her previous crossings. The first one was in 1892 on a ship she refuses to name because it was so awful. Dormitories, she says, shuddering. Men and women and children all mixed together. No privacy, no decent food. You brought your own and hoped it lasted. I was sick the entire way. Swore I'd never do it again. But she did do it again, obviously. Because her son needed her. Because family pulls you across oceans whether you want to go or not. This ship, though, she gestures around the dining saloon. This is something else entirely. I've got my own cabin. Well, sharing with 3 other women, but still. A cabin, with a door that closes, and real beds, not wooden shelves, and someone brings me food 3 times a day like I'm a lady of leisure. She laughs at herself, at the absurdity of it. A grandmother from Galway being treated like a lady of leisure. But she's right. This is different. This is better. You've heard the old stories too from your parents and grandparents. The coffin ships during the famine, when people died by the dozens and were thrown overboard like garbage. The steerage sections on older vessels where emigrants were packed so tight they could barely breathe. The captains who viewed their human cargo as an inconvenience at best and a source of disease at worst. The Titanic isn't like that. White Star isn't like that. They've figured out that treating people decently is actually good for business. That clean cabins and hot meals and stewards with numbered badges create a reputation that brings more customers through the door. Capitalism, your father would call it. The invisible hand of the market making things better not out of kindness but out of greed. He's suspicious of it, your father. Raised on stories of landlords and exploiters and bosses who squeezed every last penny out of working people. But maybe it doesn't matter why they treat you well. Maybe it only matters that they do. Breakfast winds down. The stewards clear plates, collect cups, wipe down tables for the next sitting. You're supposed to leave now. Make room for the hundreds of other passengers still waiting their turn. The second sitting will get the same food, though perhaps slightly less fresh, slightly more picked over. You hang your coat on one of the hooks along the wall before you leave. There's no cloakroom in third class, no place to store your things while you eat. Just rows of hooks, simple and practical. Your coat hangs next to the Finnish man's heavy wool jacket and Nora's sensible shawl. Everyone's belongings mixed together. Everyone's lives overlapping in this temporary floating community. The watertight bulkhead cuts through the middle of the dining saloon you notice on your way out. A massive steel wall with a door in it, designed to seal shut if water starts flooding in. It divides the room into two sections, forward and aft. Another reminder that you're on a ship, that all of this comfort and civilization is happening in a steel box floating over thousands of feet of cold, dark water. But you don't think about that. Nobody thinks about that. The ship is unsinkable, they say. The most advanced vessel ever built. Watertight compartments, double bottom hull, all the latest safety features. You think about lunch instead. The menu card said rice soup, roast beef with brown gravy, boiled potatoes and sweet corn, plum pudding for dessert. Dessert. You're going to eat dessert today, in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. On a ship that feeds you 3 meals a day and calls you sir and promises in writing to treat you with civility. Whatever happens in America, whatever struggles wait for you on the other side, you're going to remember this. This moment, this feeling. Walking out of a dining saloon with a full stomach and a warm feeling in your chest, knowing that lunch is only a few hours away and dinner after that. 6 days of this. 6 days of being fed and sheltered and carried toward your future. 6 days before the hard work begins again. You're going to enjoy every minute of it. Padraig is beside you, looking better than he has since you boarded. Food helps with seasickness, it turns out. Or maybe his body is finally adjusting. Either way, the green tinge is gone from his face and he's walking steadier. What do you want to do now, he asks. Good question. You've got hours until lunch. Hours with nothing required of you, no work to do, no chores waiting. It's a foreign feeling, this abundance of free time. Let's explore, you say. See what else this ship has. Because there's more, you know. Common rooms and open decks and spaces you haven't discovered yet. A whole floating world waiting to be explored while the Atlantic slides past beneath you. The day stretches ahead like a promise. Your first full day at sea. Your first real taste of the life you're sailing toward. Behind you, the dining saloon fills with the next wave of hungry passengers. The stewards are already bringing out fresh trays, fresh bread, fresh pots of tea. This cycle continues. The morning keeps moving. And somewhere ahead, invisible beyond the curve of the earth, America waits. You pause at the door and look back one more time at the dining saloon. It's already transformed. the tables filling up again with fresh faces, fresh accents, fresh stories. A young mother is settling her children at the bench where you just sat. An elderly man in a worn but clean suit is unfolding his napkin with careful dignity. Two young men who look like brothers are arguing good-naturedly in what sounds like Italian. Each of them has a reason for being here. Each of them left something behind to chase something ahead, and for the next 6 days you'll all share this ship, these corridors, these meals together. The watertight door in the bulkhead stands open, allowing easy passage between the two halves of the room. Heavy hinges, solid construction, designed to swing shut and seal if needed, creating a barrier against flooding. You run your hand along the steel frame as you pass through, feeling the cold metal, the precise engineering. Everything on this ship is engineered. Everything is planned. The steel and the rivets and the carefully calculated compartments that make it unsinkable. The scheduled meal times and the numbered steward badges and the printed menus with their promises of civility. Nothing is left to chance. It makes you feel safe somehow. All this planning, all this preparation. People much smarter than you have thought through every detail, anticipated every problem, built redundancy upon redundancy into the fabric of this vessel. You're in good hands. 700 emigrants in third class, and thousands more in the upper decks, all of you carried by the most carefully designed ship in the history of the world. The corridor outside the dining saloon is crowded now, people moving in both directions. You step aside to let a steward pass, his arms full of fresh linens. Somewhere behind you, a child laughs at something. Somewhere ahead, voices are raised in song, someone practicing hymns maybe, or just singing for the joy of it. The ship is alive with sound, with movement, with 700 individual lives all happening at once, overlapping and interweaving like threads in a great tapestry. You're one of those threads now. Your story is woven into this floating city, at least for these 6 days. Whatever happens next, wherever you end up, you'll always be someone who crossed the Atlantic on the Titanic, who ate breakfast in this dining saloon, who walked these corridors and slept in these cabins and stood on these decks, watching the horizon for the first glimpse of the new world. It's not a small thing being part of history, even if you don't know it yet. Padraig tugs your sleeve. Come on. Let's go up. I want to see the sky. You nod and follow him toward the stairs. The sky sounds good. After the enclosed spaces of the lower decks, after the noise and the crowds and the meals in a room without windows, the open air sounds like exactly what you need. The steel walls vibrate gently with the power of the engines far below, and the day unfolds before you, full of possibilities you're only beginning to imagine. The sky hits you like a physical thing. After hours in the enclosed spaces below, the corridors and cabins and the windowless dining saloon, stepping onto the open deck feels like being born again. The wind, the salt smell, the endless blue stretching in every direction until it meets the endless blue of the ocean. You stop at the top of the stairs and just breathe. Padraig does the same beside you. Neither of you speaks. There's nothing to say. The Atlantic Ocean is spread out before you, behind you, on every side of you, and for a long moment that's all that exists. Just you, and the water, and the wind, and the pale April sun trying its best to warm the air. Third class gets more open deck space than you expected. The stern section especially. There's a whole area back here called the poop deck, which makes Padraig snicker when you tell him. Poop deck. Like something a child would make up, but that's the actual nautical term apparently. The raised deck at the very back of the ship. Benches line the railings. Simple wooden benches, bolted to the deck, where passengers can sit and watch the water churn behind them. The ship's wake stretches back toward the horizon like a white road, pointing the way to everything you've left behind. Ireland is back there somewhere, your parents, your home, the life you knew. You choose not to look that direction for too long. Instead, you explore. The deck is cluttered with equipment. Big electric cranes loom overhead, used for loading cargo when the ship is in port. Their shadows fall across the wooden planking in strange angular patterns. Cargo hatches dot the surface, covered with heavy lids that seal the holds below. If you lifted one of those lids and looked down, you'd see a shaft dropping 5 stories into the belly of the ship where all the trunks and crates are stored. You don't lift any lids. You're not sure you're allowed to touch them, but you peer at the edges, marvel at the engineering. Everything on this ship is built to serve a purpose. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is decorative, at least not back here in third-class territory. The railing at the stern catches your attention. It's low, really low, maybe 3 feet high, if that. You're not a tall man, but even you could topple over without much effort. Back home, you've worked on roofs with your father, comfortable with heights. But looking over this railing at the churning water below makes your stomach clench in a way that climbing never did. The water is far down, and cold, and moving fast. You step back from the edge. Other passengers are out here enjoying the air. Families mostly, since this is the stern section where women and children are quartered. A group of kids runs past you, playing some kind of chasing game, their laughter sharp and bright in the salt wind. Their mothers watch from the benches, calling out warnings not to run so fast, not to get so close to the railing. Nobody mentions the thing that everyone is thinking, that a child could fit through those railings, that the gap between the posts is wide enough for a small body, that one slip, one stumble, one moment of inattention could mean disaster. But then, life is always like that, isn't it? Full of dangers we learn to live with. The river near your village has drowned children. The roads have crushed people under cartwheels. The factories in the cities chew up workers and spit them out broken. This railing is just one more risk in a world made of risks. You find a bench and sit. Padraig joins you. The sun is weak but present, and with the wind blocked by the ship's superstructure, you can almost feel warm if you close your eyes and imagine it. The ship moves beneath you. You hadn't really noticed it below decks. Down there, the vibration of the engines masked everything else. But up here, in the open air, you can feel the Titanic's actual motion. Long, slow rolls from side to side. Gentle pitches forward and back. The Atlantic swells, lifting the hull and setting it down again, over and over, in a rhythm that feels almost like breathing. It's soothing once you get used to it, like being rocked in a cradle, like the ship is a living creature carrying you across the water on its back. Padraig seems to agree. The green tinge hasn't returned to his face. If anything, he looks better out here than he has since leaving Ireland. The fresh air, the steady horizon, the sense of space after the cramped quarters below. I could stay here all day, he says. You could too. But there's more to see, more to explore while you have the chance. The well deck is forward of the poop deck, one level down. You can see it from where you're sitting, a broad open area behind the fourth funnel, more benches there, more passengers milling about. And above them, visible on the decks that rise toward the front of the ship, you can see first-class passengers taking their own constitutionals. They look different from up there, smaller, more distant. but also more colourful somehow. The women in bright dresses and elaborate hats, the men in well-tailored suits, they stroll along their own promenades, separate from you, in a world that's only a few hundred feet away but might as well be another planet. You don't feel bitter about it. Not really. They paid more. They get more. That's how the world works. You knew that before you ever set foot on this ship, but there's something strange about seeing it so clearly. The invisible lines that divide people, the physical barriers that keep the classes apart. Up there is luxury beyond imagining. Down here is comfortable but simple, and between them, nothing but steel and wood and the unspoken agreement that everyone will stay where they belong. You wonder if any of them ever look down, if they see you and the other third-class passengers and wonder about your lives, your stories, your reasons for being here. Probably not. Why would they? You're just the cargo that happens to be human. The bodies being transported across the ocean to fill American factories and farms and cities. Valuable in aggregate, perhaps. Invisible as individuals. But that's fine. You don't need them to see you. You have your own life to live, your own future to build. Let them have their parlour suites and their 10-course dinners and their Turkish baths. You have a full stomach, a warm bed, and a ticket to the other side. That's enough. That's plenty. You and Padraig make your way down to the well deck. It's busier here, more sheltered from the wind. People cluster in small groups, chatting, passing the time. You recognise a few faces from breakfast. The Finnish man is here, leaning against the railing, staring out at the water with an expression you can't read. Nora from Galway is sitting on a bench with two other women deep in conversation, and there's your cabin mate Margaret with her children. Little William is pretending to be a sailor, marching back and forth with exaggerated seriousness. Mary is sitting at her mother's feet, playing with something she found on the deck. A bit of rope, maybe, or a discarded button. Margaret waves when she sees you. "Getting some air?" she asks. "Needed to see the sky." She nods understanding. It's easy to forget there is one down below. I've been bringing the children up every few hours. They'd go mad otherwise, cooped up in that cabin. Daniel, her husband, is nowhere to be seen. He's forward with the other men, in a completely different section of the ship. They might meet for meals if the sittings align right. They might pass each other on Scotland Road if they time their walks carefully. But for now, for these 6 days, they live separately. Man and wife, parents of these 2 children, sleeping 800 feet apart. The things people endure for a chance at something better. Near the edge of the well deck, partially sheltered by an overhang, you find something unexpected. A wheel, a ship's helm, like the ones you've seen in pictures. But this one is here, at the stern, mounted on a raised platform with skylights set into the deck around it. Padraig whistles low. "Is that what I think it is?" You look closer. The wheel is connected to something below. You can see the control linkage, the shaft disappearing through the deck, and the skylights, you realise, look down into a room full of machinery, the steering engine room. This must be a backup helm, a way to control the ship from back here if something goes wrong with the main bridge up front. "Docking bridge," says a voice behind you, "for when she's coming in and out of harbour." You turn. An older man, weathered face, calloused hands. A crew member, you think at first, but no. His clothes are too worn, too patched. He's a passenger like you. "I worked ships for 30 years, he explains, before my back gave out. Now I'm heading to live with my daughter in Baltimore." He gestures at the helm. That wheel there connects straight to the steering engines. No hydraulics, no telemotors. If something went wrong with the main controls, a pilot could bring her in from back here, long as he could see where he was going. He points forward, along the length of the ship. You can see the funnels rising, the masts, the bridge structure far ahead. 800 feet of steel and machinery between you and the bow. Can't see everything from here, the man continues, but you can see enough. Enough to clear a dock, enough to get her turned around in a tight harbour. He shakes his head admiringly. They thought of everything building this one, every possible problem, every possible solution, redundancy on redundancy. He wanders off, still talking to himself about steering mechanisms and backup systems. You watch him go, then turn back to the helm. Touch it, very gently. The wood is smooth under your fingers. Thousands of hands have touched this wheel before yours. Shipbuilders and crew and probably curious passengers just like you. You imagine standing here, steering the largest ship in the world, feeling her respond to your touch, guiding all that steel and steam and human cargo across the vast emptiness of the ocean. It's a fantasy, of course. You'll never steer anything bigger than a fishing boat, if that. But for a moment, just a moment, you let yourself pretend. The ship moves beneath you as you stand there, not the quick rocking of a small boat, the kind you felt on fishing trips in Cork Harbour. This is different. Long, slow rolls from side to side, gentle pitches fore and aft. The motion of something so massive that even the Atlantic can only nudge it, never toss it around. They said Titanic would barely feel the waves. That's what the posters promised, and it's mostly true. But she still moves. Every ship moves, no matter how big. The ocean doesn't care about human engineering. It does what it wants, and everything floating on it just has to adjust. Your body is adjusting. You don't notice it consciously anymore. The way you shift your weight to compensate, the way your knees flex slightly with each roll, it's become automatic, natural, like the ship has taught your muscles a new language overnight. Padraig still notices. You can see it in his face, the slight tension, the way he braces himself against every swell. His sea legs are coming, but they're not here yet. Give him another day or two. The day passes like that, wandering the open decks, finding quiet corners and busy crowds, watching the water slide past, endless and unchanging, while the ship carries you steadily westward. You find a spot near the stern railing where you can look back at the wake. The ship leaves a trail behind her, a wide road of churned white water that stretches back toward the horizon, back toward Ireland, back toward everything you left. If you squint, you can almost see it. The green hills, the stone walls, your mother standing at the door of the cottage, watching the road like she'll watch it every day until you send word that you're safe. You look away. Around noon, the bugle sounds for lunch. You and Padraig make your way back down to the dining saloon, where rice soup and roast beef and boiled potatoes wait. The food is just as good as breakfast, just as abundant, just as strange to be receiving without having worked for it. The Finnish man is at your table again. He smiles in greeting, still doesn't speak, but he's learned to pass the bread without being asked, and you've learned to pour his tea when the pot comes around. Small kindnesses, the language of people who don't share words. After lunch, more wandering. You find a covered area near the stern where benches are set up in rows, protected from the weather. A good place to sit if it rains, you think. A place where children can play even when the decks are wet. People have already claimed spots, reading, talking, just sitting. An old woman is knitting something. her needles clicking in rhythm with the ship's motion. A young man is writing in a notebook, covering page after page with cramped handwriting. Letters home, probably, or a diary of the voyage. You should write to your mother. You promised you would. But you don't have paper, don't have pen, and even if you did, what would you say? Everything is strange and wonderful and terrifying, and I don't know who I'll be when I get to the other side. That's not the kind of letter a mother wants to receive. So instead you sit, watch the clouds drift overhead, feel the ship roll beneath you, that endless gentle rocking, like a cradle, like being held. You understand now why sailors love the sea, despite everything. There's something peaceful about being carried, about surrendering control to something so much larger than yourself. Let your mind empty out until there's nothing but the present moment, this deck, this bench, this pale April sun. Padraig falls asleep beside you. His head droops onto your shoulder. You don't move him. Let him rest. This seasickness took more out of him than he wants to admit, and sleep is the best medicine for whatever ails you. The afternoon stretches on. The sun moves across the sky, invisible behind a thin veil of clouds. The temperature drops slightly as evening approaches. You'll need to go back inside soon. Back to the cabin, back to the corridors and the crowds and the thin walls that share everyone's secrets. But not yet, not quite yet. For now, you're going to sit here and watch the horizon. Watch the endless water that separates your old life from your new one. Watch the sky darken slowly toward night. Tomorrow you'll do this again, and the day after, and the day after that. 4 more days of this floating between worlds, this suspended time when nothing is required of you except to wait. Then America. Then the real journey begins. But that's tomorrow's problem. Today, you're just going to breathe. The Atlantic stretches endlessly in every direction, and somewhere far ahead, still invisible beyond the curve of the earth, your future is waiting. The cold drives you inside eventually. April in the North Atlantic isn't winter exactly, but it's not warm either. The wind cuts through your coat after an hour or two on deck, finds all the gaps where the stitching has worn thin. Your fingers go numb, your ears start to ache, and Padraig, still recovering from his bout of seasickness, starts to shiver in a way that worries you. So you head back down, through the doors, down the stairs, into the enclosed spaces of sea deck where the air is still and warm and carries the smell of pipe smoke and wool, and too many people breathing the same air. But it's comfortable, you have to admit that. As your eyes adjust to the dimmer light, as the warmth seeps back into your frozen fingers, you realize this space is nicer than you expected. Much nicer. There's a covered area near the stairs, a kind of sheltered promenade with benches built into the walls, protected from the weather but still open enough to feel less claustrophobic than the corridors below. People are gathered here, talking in small groups, reading, just sitting. It feels like the lobby of a hotel, not a fancy hotel but a respectable one. The kind of place your family could never afford but always walked past with a mixture of curiosity and longing. Padraig finds a seat and sinks into it gratefully. His face has gone pale again, though from cold rather than sickness. You sit beside him and let the warmth do its work. From here, you can see 2 doorways leading to larger rooms. The smoking room on one side, the general room on the other, separated by a bulkhead, each serving a different purpose, a different crowd. I'm going to look around, you tell Padraig. You rest. He nods, already half asleep. The combination of fresh air and warmth has knocked him out. You leave him there and walk toward the smoking room, curious what you'll find. It looks like a pub. That's your first thought. You push through the door and find yourself in a space that could have been lifted straight from any decent drinking establishment in Cork or Dublin. Wood panelling on the walls, simple but comfortable furniture, a warmth that comes from bodies and conversation, and the faint haze of tobacco smoke hanging in the air. Men fill the room, only men. This is their territory, their retreat from the mixed company of the rest of the ship. They sit in small groups, talking, playing cards, nursing glasses of whiskey or porter. Some smoke cigarettes. Others have pipes clenched between their teeth. A few are working on plugs of chewing tobacco, spitting into the brass spittoons scattered across the floor. The spittoons surprise you. They're everywhere. Little brass bowls positioned at regular intervals, catching the brown streams of tobacco juice that men fire toward them with varying degrees of accuracy. The floor around them is stained despite their presence. Some things you suppose can't be entirely contained. You find an empty seat near the wall and settle in. Nobody pays you much attention. You're just another young man in a room full of young men, all of you heading somewhere, all of you leaving something behind. The wood panelling on the walls is simple but handsome. Not the fancy carved stuff you imagine they have up in first class, but solid and well made. Someone took time with this room, chose the colours carefully, picked furniture that would last. It's the kind of craftsmanship your father would appreciate if he ever saw it. The joints fitting tight, the surfaces sanded smooth, no shortcuts, no cheap materials. You run your hand along the arm of your chair. Good wood. Oak, probably. Built to handle years of use by rough men with calloused hands. The card game at the next table draws your eye. 5 men hunched over a battered deck, coins stacked in the centre. Poker, maybe, or some game you don't recognise. They're speaking a mixture of English and something else. German, perhaps, or Dutch. One of the men has a thick moustache that curls at the ends, waxed into points. He seems to be winning, if the pile of coins in front of him is any indication. A steward appears from somewhere, a pantry in the back that you hadn't noticed. He's carrying a tray with glasses and bottles, making rounds of the room. When he reaches your corner, he pauses. "Something to drink, sir?" "Sir?" There it is again. That word they keep using, even though you're obviously nobody important. "What do you have?" "Whiskey, porter, stout, ale. Tea if you prefer." You order a porter and fish a coin from your pocket. The steward takes it, returns a moment later with a glass filled with dark liquid. It's good. Better than the stuff at home, actually. Smoother. Less bitter. You sip it slowly, making it last. Around you, conversations rise and fall like waves. You catch fragments. Stories of where people are going, what they're hoping to find. A man from Liverpool heading to join his brother in Chicago. A Scandinavian farmer who sold everything he owned to buy passage, betting his entire future on a piece of land in Minnesota. 2 Irishmen from Kerry arguing good-naturedly about hurling, a sport you know nothing about despite sharing a country with them. The room feels alive in a way that the cabins and corridors don't. Down there everyone is just passing through, on their way somewhere else. Here people have stopped, settled, made themselves at home, at least for an hour or two. The tobacco smoke and the quiet clink of glasses and the low murmur of voices create something that feels almost domestic. Homey. You finish your porter and consider ordering another. But money is tight. Every coin you spend here is a coin you won't have in America. And you don't know how long it will take to find work, how many weeks you might have to stretch your savings before the first paycheck comes. So you leave the glass on the table and stand. Nod to the men at the card game who ignore you entirely. Make your way back through the door and into the covered promenade where Padraig is still sleeping, slumped against the wall with his mouth slightly open. The general room is on the other side. You decide to look. It's similar to the smoking room in layout, but completely different in atmosphere. Brighter, for one thing. Portholes line the walls, letting in the grey afternoon light. And quieter, despite having more people. Families are here, women with children, older folks who don't want to breathe tobacco smoke for hours on end. The furniture is simpler, wooden benches and chairs, no upholstery, but clean and sturdy and arranged in clusters that encourage conversation. People have spread out, claimed their spots. A mother nurses an infant in one corner, a shawl draped over her shoulder for privacy. Children play on the floor, some kind of game with string that you vaguely remember from your own childhood. Old women knit, old men doze. The air smells different in here, cleaner, no tobacco, just wool and soap and the faint milky smell of babies. It's a domestic kind of space, despite being on a ship in the middle of the ocean. The women have made it their own, staked out territories, established routines. You can see who sits where by the worn spots on the benches, the way people move automatically to their usual places. Near the back, a door is marked crew only. It leads to the steering engine room someone told you earlier, the massive machinery that turns the rudder that actually controls where this giant vessel goes. All that power hidden behind a simple wooden door while families sit and chat a few feet away. Margaret is here, your cabin mate, with her children. She's talking to another woman, a young mother with twins who keeps having to interrupt the conversation to separate the boys when they start fighting. Which is constantly. You wave. Margaret waves back but doesn't call you over. She's deep in conversation, leaning forward, speaking intently. Women's business, probably. The things they talk about when men aren't around. You don't take offence. Instead, you find a seat by one of the portholes and look out at the water. The light is different now. Afternoon fading toward evening. The sun is somewhere behind the clouds, invisible but still casting its pale glow across the waves. The ocean looks different from in here. Smaller somehow. Framed by the round porthole, it becomes just a picture. A scene you're watching rather than a world you're floating in. You think about your mother. She'll be worried by now. It's been 3 days since you left Cork, since you hugged her goodbye at the train station and promised to write as soon as you reach New York. 3 days of her not knowing where you are, whether the ship is sailing smoothly, whether you're eating enough, sleeping enough, staying warm. Mothers worry. That's what they do. It's their job. Your father probably isn't worried. He's a practical man, your father. Once a thing is done, it's done. No point fretting over what you can't control. He'll be working the farm, same as always, feeding the animals, mending the fences, doing the 1,000 small tasks that keep a poor Irish family alive from one season to the next. He didn't cry when you left. Neither did you. You shook hands like men, and he said something about keeping your head down and working hard, and that was it. No speeches, no big emotional scenes. Just a handshake and a nod, and then you were walking away, toward the train, toward the ship, toward whatever comes next. You wonder if he regrets that now, if he wishes he'd said more, or if he's exactly the same as always, stoic and steady, not wasting energy on feelings that won't change anything. You'll write to them soon, when you get to America, when you have an address to give them, a place where they can write back. Right now, a letter would just be words into the void. You can't receive mail on a moving ship, so for now, you just sit, watch the water, let your mind drift. The room fills up as evening approaches. More families coming in from the cold decks. More children running around, getting in everyone's way. The noise level rises, but it's a comfortable noise. The sound of people living their lives. Talking, laughing, arguing, existing. Nora from Galway appears at some point. She spots you by the porthole and comes over, settles into the chair beside you with a sigh. "Long day," she says. "They're all long days, aren't they? On a ship," she laughs. "True enough. Nothing to do but wait. I'm not used to it. Back home there's always work, always something that needs doing. Here I feel useless." You know what she means. Your hands keep wanting to find tasks. Your body keeps expecting the rhythm of work that's defined your life since you were old enough to help in the fields. This idleness feels wrong somehow, unearned. "It's only 6 days, you say, then back to work." "God willing." She crosses herself, a quick automatic gesture. "Assuming there's work to be found. My Patrick says there's plenty in Philadelphia. Factory work, domestic service. But you never know until you're there, do you?" Don't. That's the gamble all of you are making, selling everything, leaving everyone, crossing an ocean on the promise that the other side will be better. And maybe it will. Probably it will. But there are no guarantees. The bugle sounds for dinner. Third sitting. You're sitting, apparently, though you're still not entirely sure how the schedule works. Everyone starts gathering their things, collecting their children, moving toward the doors. You and Nora walk together to the dining saloon. Padraig joins you somewhere along the way, rubbing sleep from his eyes. He looks better. The rest did him good. Dinner is everything the menu promised. Cold meat and cheese and pickles, fresh bread and butter, stewed figs and rice. Something called cabin biscuits, which turn out to be hard dry crackers that you're supposed to dip in tea to soften. The cheese is sharp and crumbly. English cheddar, someone says. The pickles are vinegary, the kind that make your mouth pucker, and the stewed figs are sweet enough to qualify as dessert, soft and sticky, swimming in a sauce that tastes faintly of cinnamon. You eat slowly. There's no rush. The stewards keep the tea coming, pot after pot, and the dining saloon buzzes with conversation in a dozen languages. At the table behind you, a group of young men are singing something in Swedish. At the table ahead, 2 old women are arguing in what might be Polish. The noise washes over you like music. The Finnish man is at your table again. You've started thinking of him as a fixture, a permanent part of the dining saloon landscape. He still doesn't speak English, but you've developed a kind of communication anyway. Nods and smiles and gestures. He shows you the proper way to eat the cabin biscuits, dunking them in his tea for exactly the right amount of time before biting. Too short and they're still rock hard. Too long and they dissolve into mush. After dinner, you're tired. The day has been longer than it felt. All that walking and exploring and sitting in the cold. Your body wants sleep, but first you go back to the cabin. Wash your face in the basin. The water is cold, of course, it's always cold, but clean, drawn from the fresh water tanks deep in the ship. You splash it on your cheeks, feel the chill tighten your skin. Good, refreshing. A small ritual to mark the end of the day. You change into your night clothes, such as they are. The same shirt you wore yesterday, the one you keep for sleeping, the wool trousers you'll put back on in the morning. Travelling light means wearing things over and over, rotating through the same few pieces until they start to smell, and then wearing them anyway, because what choice do you have? Climb into your bunk and lie there in the darkness, listening to the sounds of the ship. The engines rumble far below. The hull creaks and groans as it flexes against the waves. Voices drift through the thin walls, muffled conversations from the cabins on either side. Someone is snoring already. Someone else is praying, a rhythmic murmur in a language you don't recognise. Margaret and her children are settling in too. The baby fusses for a while, then goes quiet. Little William asks for a story, and Margaret tells him one, something about a brave rabbit and a clever fox. Her voice is soft and warm, and even though the story isn't for you, you find yourself listening anyway. The ship rocks gently, back and forth, like a cradle, like your mother's arms when you were small. You close your eyes. Tomorrow will be another day like this one. Meals and wandering and waiting. The endless patience of ocean travel. You're getting used to it. The rhythm of shipboard life. The way time stretches and compresses. The strange intimacy of living so close to strangers. 4 more days, then New York, then everything changes. But that's tomorrow's problem. Tonight, you're just gonna sleep. The steady vibration of the hull becomes a lullaby, and gradually, gently, consciousness slips away. The days blur together after a while. That's the strange thing about life at sea. Each day is different and exactly the same. You wake up, you eat breakfast, you walk the decks or sit in the common rooms, you eat lunch, you walk some more, you eat dinner, you sleep, and then you do it all over again. By the 3rd day, you've stopped counting hours. By the 4th, you've almost forgotten what land looks like. The ocean is your whole world now. The steel corridors, the rocking deck, the endless horizon that never gets any closer no matter how long you stare at it. Your body has adjusted to the ship's motion. That constant gentle sway that made Padraig sick feels natural now. Normal. You don't even notice it anymore, except at night when the rocking helps you fall asleep. The other passengers have become familiar. Not friends exactly. You don't know most of their names, but you recognize their faces, their habits, their places in the daily rhythm of shipboard life. The Finnish man who always sits in the same spot at meals, Nora from Galway with her endless stories about her grandchildren, the Swedish newlyweds who still can't keep their hands off each other. Even the stewards have become predictable. You know which ones smile and which ones don't, which ones fill your teacup without being asked, and which ones make you wait. Small differences that mean nothing and everything when you're trapped in a floating box with the same people day after day. Saturday passes, another day of walking and eating and waiting. The weather turns colder. You can see your breath on the open decks now, little puffs of white that vanish almost before they form. The sun shines, but there's no warmth in it. April in the North Atlantic. Winter hasn't quite let go yet. People talk about the cold, in the smoking room, in the general room, on the decks, how it came on suddenly, how the temperature dropped overnight. Old sailors among the passengers nod knowingly and mutter about ice. There's ice up here, they say. Bergs and floes and pack ice drifting down from the Arctic. Ships see them all the time this time of year. You don't think much about it. Ice is the captain's problem, not yours. He knows these waters. He knows his ship. Let him worry about what's floating out there in the darkness. Sunday morning dawns clear and bright and colder still. It's April 14th. 5 days since you boarded at Queenstown. 1 more day, maybe 2, before you reach New York. The end is close now. You can almost taste it. After breakfast, word spreads through 3rd class. Mass is being held. 2 priests from 2nd class are conducting services, one in English and French, one in German and Hungarian. Catholics are invited to attend. You go. Of course you go. Your mother would never forgive you if she found out you were on a ship with a priest and didn't take communion. And besides, it feels right somehow. One last mass before everything changes. One last moment of the faith that's shaped your whole life before you step into a country built by Protestants. The service is held in one of the common areas. Not a proper church, obviously. No pews, no altar, no stations of the cross. Just a room full of people standing and kneeling on the hard floor while Father Biles leads them through the familiar rhythms of the liturgy. The priest is English, middle-aged, balding, with a gentle voice that carries surprisingly well. He speaks in Latin first, then English, then French, repeating the key phrases so everyone can follow. The German priest, Father Peruschitz, handles the translations for the Central Europeans. His sermon is about faith, about trusting in God's plan even when the path is unclear, about the courage it takes to leave everything familiar and step into the unknown. He might be talking about Abraham, about the Israelites, about any of the wanderers in Scripture, but everyone knows he's really talking about them, the immigrants, the people crossing the ocean to start new lives. You kneel when you're supposed to kneel. Stand when you're supposed to stand. Speak the responses that you've been saying since before you could read. The Lord be with you, and with your spirit. The words come automatically like breathing. Around you, fellow Catholics do the same. Irish and Italian and Polish and German, all united for this moment in the ancient rituals of the Church. Different languages, different backgrounds, different reasons for being on this ship, but the same faith, the same prayers, the same hope for salvation. You think about your mother again. She's at Mass right now too, probably. Sunday morning in Cork, the little church where you were baptized, where you received your first communion, where you'll never set foot again. She's kneeling on the same hard wooden bench she's knelt on every Sunday since she was a girl, praying for her son who's somewhere on the ocean. The thought makes your chest tight. Homesickness, sharp and sudden. You push it down. No time for that. No use for it. You made your choice. Now you live with it. After communion, after the final blessing, people scatter back to their routines. The dining saloon for those who missed breakfast. The decks for those who want fresh air despite the cold. The common rooms for everyone else. You spend the afternoon in the general room watching life happen around you. Children play, women talk, old men doze in corners. Someone has brought out a deck of cards and a game is forming at one of the tables. You don't know the rules, but you watch anyway. Something to pass the time. Margaret appears at some point with her children. Little William is restless, bouncing off the walls, driving his mother slowly insane. Mary is quieter, content to sit at her mother's feet and play with the same bit of rope she's been carrying around since you boarded. He's going stir-crazy, Margaret says, nodding at her son. Needs to run. There's no space for it down here. You offer to take him up to the deck. Let him burn off some energy. Margaret accepts gratefully, and you spend the next hour chasing William around the well deck, while he pretends to be a pirate or a soldier or a whale, depending on his mood. The cold bites at your ears. Your fingers go numb. But William doesn't seem to notice. He runs until his cheeks are red and his breath comes in gasps, and then he runs some more. Children are different. They don't feel the cold the way adults do, or maybe they just don't care. When you finally bring him back inside, he's calm, exhausted, ready for a nap. Margaret thanks you with eyes that say more than her words. Dinner is the usual affair. Cold meat and cheese, bread and butter, gruel and cabin biscuits. You eat without really tasting it. The food has become routine, like everything else. You've stopped marvelling at the abundance and started treating it as your due. After dinner, something changes. It starts in the general room. Someone has a fiddle, someone else has a whistle. A third person sits down at the piano in the corner, runs their fingers across the keys, starts to play. Music fills the room. Not the polished orchestral music you imagine they have up in first class. This is rougher, rawer. Folk tunes from a dozen countries, played by people who learned from their parents and grandparents, who carry songs in their blood the way they carry names. People start to clap, to tap their feet, and then, inevitably, to dance. It happens organically. No announcement, no formal invitation. Just a few people stepping into the open space between the benches starting to move. An Irish couple first, spinning through a jig they've probably danced 1,000 times at village gatherings back home. Then others join. Italians and Scandinavians and Germans, each bringing their own steps, their own traditions. You watch from the edge of the room, grinning like an idiot. This is nothing like the stiff formal dances you've heard about in first class. No waltzes, no proper partners, no dance cards and white gloves. This is chaos. Beautiful, joyful chaos. People dancing however they want, wherever they want, with whoever happens to be nearby. The room smells of sweat and wool and spilled beer. Bodies press against bodies. Someone steps on your foot and doesn't apologize because there's no point. Everyone is stepping on everyone. That's just how it is when 70 people try to dance in a space meant for 40. But nobody complains. Nobody cares. The music is too good. The feeling too right. After days of waiting and watching and doing nothing, everyone needs this. The release. The joy. The simple human pleasure of moving your body to a rhythm. The piano player shifts to something faster. The fiddler keeps up, and suddenly Eugene Daly is there, pushing through the crowd, his uilleann pipes tucked under his arm. You recognize him immediately. The piper from the dock at Queenstown, the one who played A Nation Once Again as Ireland disappeared behind you. He'd been crying then. He's not crying now. Now he's grinning, face flushed, fingers already finding the chanter as he squeezes the bag. The pipes wail to life. There's something about the sound of uilleann pipes that goes straight to your spine. That high keening melody, ancient and mournful and alive all at once. It doesn't matter what song he's playing. The sound itself is enough. The sound of Ireland, of home, of everything you left behind. But tonight, Daly isn't playing morning songs. Tonight he's playing jigs and reels, the music of celebration, the music that makes your feet want to move whether you want them to or not. A girl appears at your elbow. Young, pretty, face flushed from dancing. Swedish or Norwegian, you think, though you can't be sure. Dance, she says, the word barely audible over the music. You should say no. You're a terrible dancer. You'll step on her feet, make a fool of yourself. But her smile is wide and her eyes are bright, and what the hell? You're on a ship in the middle of the ocean. Who's going to judge you? You dance. It's clumsy at first. You don't know the steps, and neither does she, not really. You're both making it up as you go, trying to match the rhythm, trying not to crash into the other couples spinning around you. But after a minute or two it stops mattering. The music takes over. Your body finds its own rhythm. You're not dancing well, but you're dancing, and that's enough. The girl laughs. You laugh. Everyone is laughing. The room is packed now. Word has spread through third class, and people have come from everywhere. From the smoking room, from the cabins, from the open decks where they were watching the stars. The party has taken on a life of its own. Someone brings out whiskey, someone else has a bottle of wine. Glasses are filled and emptied and filled again. The dancing gets wilder, the music gets louder. The postal clerks 2 decks up are probably cursing every instrument player in steerage, but nobody down here cares. At some point the Italians take over the floor. A group of young men from Naples or Palermo or somewhere south, dancing something that looks like controlled madness. Fast feet, dramatic arm movements, shouts and claps at unpredictable intervals. Everyone else backs off to watch, forming a circle around them, cheering them on. "Strange dance," someone mutters beside you. Amy Stanley, you think. The English girl who's been travelling alone. "But a good one," you say. She nods, clapping along with everyone else. The Italians finish with a flourish. Applause erupts. Then the Irish take the floor again, and the fiddle and pipes launch into something so fast it makes your head spin just listening. You find yourself back against the wall, catching your breath. Your legs ache, your lungs burn, but you're smiling so hard your face hurts. This is what you came for. Not the ship, not the voyage, not even America. This moment, this feeling. Being surrounded by strangers who feel like family, all of you dancing and singing and celebrating because tomorrow is uncertain and tonight is here. Padraig finds you at some point. He's been dancing too, you can tell. His hair is wild, his shirt untucked. He's holding a cup of something that might be whiskey or might be tea. Hard to tell in this light. "Hell of a night," he says. "Hell of a night," you agree. You stand there together, cousins, almost brothers, watching the party swirl around you. The music and the laughter and the stamping feet. The faces lit by lamplight, flushed with joy and drink and the simple pleasure of being alive. Outside, beyond the steel walls and the portholes and the sealed doors, the Atlantic rolls dark and cold. Ice drifts somewhere in that darkness, silent and patient. The ship ploughs forward at full speed, 22 knots, covering miles of ocean with every passing hour. But you don't know that. None of you know. All you know is this room, this music, this moment. Nora from Galway grabs your hands and pulls you back onto the floor. She's surprisingly spry for her age, feet moving in patterns that must have been old when her grandmother was young. She spins you around, laughing at your clumsiness, and for a few minutes you're a child again, dancing at a village wedding while the adults drink and the musicians play until dawn. The clock ticks toward 11, then past it. People start to drift away, not all at once, in ones and twos. Parents with tired children, older folks who can't keep up with the young ones, couples looking for privacy. The crowd thins, but the core remains. The musicians keep playing. The dancers keep dancing. You should go to bed. You know that. Tomorrow you'll be exhausted, and there's still another full day at sea. Maybe 2, depending on speed and weather and 100 other factors you don't understand. But you stay. Just a little longer. Just one more song. Daniel Buckley, a lad from King William's Town you've talked to a few times, spins past with a girl on his arm. He catches your eye and grins. "Grand time," he shouts over the music. "Every kind of instrument on board." It's true. The fiddle and the pipes, you know. But someone has a tin whistle. Someone else has a bodhran, the Irish drum, tapping out the heartbeat of every song. And the piano, of course. Always the piano, holding everything together. You lean against the wall and let the music wash over you. Your legs are tired, but your heart is full. This is what people mean when they talk about community. Not neighbours you wave to, not churchgoers you see on Sundays. This. Strangers who become family in the space of a few songs, bound together by rhythm and joy and the shared knowledge that tomorrow might be different but tonight is perfect. The clock ticks toward 11, then past it. People start to drift away, not all at once, in ones and twos, parents with tired children, older folks who can't keep up with the young ones, couples looking for privacy. The crowd thins, but the core remains. The musicians keep playing. The dancers keep dancing. The temperature has dropped outside. You can feel it even in here, a chill seeping through the walls. Someone mentioned seeing stars earlier, bright and clear, the kind of night sky you only get when there's no clouds or no moon. Beautiful, they said. Cold and beautiful. You should go to bed. You know that. Tomorrow you'll be exhausted, and there's still another full day at sea. Maybe 2, depending on speed and weather and 100 other factors you don't understand. But you stay. Just a little longer. Just one more song. The pipes wail. The fiddle sings. And somewhere in the darkness outside, the largest ship in the world sails on toward destiny, carrying 700 souls who have no idea what's coming. You dance. You feel it more than hear it. A shudder runs through the ship. A grinding vibration that seems to come from everywhere and nowhere. Like someone dragged something heavy along the hull. Like the world shifted slightly on its axis and then settled back again. The music stops. Not all at once, but in a ragged collapse. The fiddle trails off. The pipes deflate with a wheeze. The piano player lifts his hands from the keys and looks around, confused. For a moment everyone is silent, listening, waiting for something else to happen. Nothing does. "What was that?" someone asks. No one answers. No one knows. The ship keeps moving. The engines keep humming their steady rhythm. Whatever that was, it hasn't changed anything obvious. The floor is still level. The lights are still on. The world hasn't ended. Nervous laughter breaks the silence. Someone makes a joke about hitting a whale. Someone else suggests maybe they bumped against another ship. The tension eases. People start talking again, though more quietly now, more carefully. Eugene Daly squeezes the bag of his pipes and the music resumes, though it's a slower tune now, softer. The dancing doesn't start up again. People drift toward the walls, toward the portholes, trying to see something in the darkness outside. You check your pocket watch. It's 20 minutes to midnight. April 14th is almost over. One more day, you think. One more day, and then New York. Padraig appears at your elbow. His face is pale in the lamplight. Did you feel that? Everyone felt it. What do you think it was? You shake your head. Don't know. Probably nothing. But your heart is beating faster than it should. Something about that sound, that vibration. It felt wrong. It felt like something breaking. A steward pushes through the crowd. Young man, white jacket, numbered badge on his arm. His face is calm, professional, trained to handle situations like this. "Nothing to worry about, ladies and gentlemen," he announces. "Just a minor incident. Please continue enjoying your evening." Someone asks what kind of incident. The steward smiles, shrugs, says something about the captain looking into it. Nothing to concern yourselves with. Everything is under control. People want to believe him. You can see it in their faces, the relief washing over them. The ship is unsinkable, they've been told. The most advanced vessel ever built. If the crew says everything is fine, then everything must be fine. You want to believe him too. It would be easier. Go back to dancing, go back to drinking, forget that strange grinding noise and the shudder that ran through the hull. The stewards know what they're doing. The captain knows what he's doing. You're just a farm boy from Cork. What do you know about ships? But your body doesn't believe. Your body knows something is wrong. The sweat on your palms, the tension in your shoulders, the way your ears keep straining for another sound, another sign that the world is about to change. The party resumes, but it's different now. Muted. People keep glancing at the portholes, keep pausing in their conversations to listen for something else. The joy of an hour ago has been replaced by something tenser, something waiting. You decide to go up on deck, see for yourself what's happening. Padraig comes with you, and a few others from the party, all of you climbing the stairs toward the open air. The cold hits you first. It's dropped even further since dinner. Your breath forms thick clouds in front of your face. The stars are out, brilliant and sharp in a moonless sky. The ocean is calm as glass, black and still in every direction. And there, on the starboard side of the deck, you see it. Ice. Not much. Just chunks and pieces scattered across the wooden planking. White and gleaming in the starlight. Someone must have scooped them up from somewhere. Some men are kicking at them, laughing, pretending to play football with the pieces. Where'd this come from? Padraig asks. You look out at the water, and there, far behind you now, you can just make out a shape in the darkness. A mountain of white glowing faintly against the black sky. Massive, silent, already receding into the distance as the ship sails on. An iceberg. You hit an iceberg. Your stomach drops. You've heard stories about icebergs. Everyone has. Ships lost in these waters. Vessels torn open by ice that floats 9/10 below the surface. Invisible until it's too late. But the Titanic keeps sailing. The engines keep running. Nobody seems panicked. The men playing football with the ice chunks are still laughing, still joking. If something was really wrong, surely the ship would have stopped. Surely someone would be raising an alarm. You stand at the railing and watch the iceberg disappear into the night. Your hands are shaking, but maybe that's just the cold. Maybe that's just the whiskey wearing off. Maybe everything really is fine. We should go back inside, Padraig says. His teeth are chattering. Freezing out here. You nod, but you don't move. Something keeps you rooted to the spot. Some instinct you can't name. The ship feels different somehow. Tilted slightly forward, maybe. Or maybe that's your imagination. Maybe you're looking for trouble where there isn't any. A steward appears on deck. Different one this time. Older. More serious. Everyone please return to your cabins, he announces. Put on your life belts as a precaution. This is just a drill. Nothing to worry about. A drill. At midnight. In the middle of the Atlantic. You look at Padraig. He looks at you. Neither of you believes it. But you go. What else can you do? You're not crew. You don't know how ships work. If they say it's a drill, maybe it's a drill. Maybe this is normal. Maybe you're being paranoid. Back below decks, the corridors are filling with people. Passengers emerging from their cabins, bleary-eyed and confused. Some are wearing their life belts, the bulky cork vests that were stored under their bunks. Others are still in their nightclothes, asking what's happening, why they've been woken. The stewards move through the crowd, calm and efficient. Just a precaution. Put on your life belts. Everything is fine. There's no danger. They're lying. You know they're lying. Or maybe they don't know themselves. Maybe they've been told to keep everyone calm while the officers figure out what to do. You reach your cabin. Margaret is already awake, already dressed, already struggling to get the life belts on her children. Little William is crying. Mary is silent, wide-eyed. clutching that same piece of rope she's carried everywhere. "What's happening?" Margaret asks. Her voice is steady, but her hands are shaking. "We hit something. Ice, I think. They're saying it's just a precaution." "But you don't believe them." "You don't answer. You don't have to." Padraig finds his own lifebelt, the one assigned to his bunk. You find yours. The cork is stiff and cold, the straps confusing in the dim light. It takes you 3 tries to get it fastened properly. Margaret finishes with the children and turns to you. "Daniel," she says, "my husband. He's forward, with the other men. I need to find him." You think of the barriers between the sections, the gates that separate the single men from the families, the distance between the bow and the stern, all those corridors and stairwells and watertight doors. I'll help you look. The 3 of you leave the cabin. You, Margaret with her children, Padraig. The corridor is packed now, a river of people flowing in both directions, everyone talking at once, English and Irish and Swedish and Finnish, a dozen languages overlapping in confusion and fear. A steward blocks your path at the foot of the main staircase. "Women and children only," he says. "Please wait here. We'll be moving you to the boat deck shortly." "My husband is forward," Margaret says. "I need to find him." "I'm sorry, Mum. The forward sections are being evacuated separately. You'll see him on deck." She doesn't believe him any more than you do, but what can she do? The steward is firm, polite but immovable. This is how it's done. Women and children first, everyone to their assigned areas. Order maintained at all costs. Margaret's face crumples for just a moment. Then she straightens, squares her shoulders, looks at you. "Find him," she says. "Tell him where we are. Tell him we're waiting." And then she's gone, swept up in the flow of women and children heading toward the boat deck. You watch her disappear around a corner, little William on her hip, Mary clutching her skirt, and you hope it's not the last time you see her. "Come on," Padraig says. "Let's find Daniel." You try to go forward, down Scotland Road, that long corridor that runs the length of the ship. But there are more stewards now, more barriers. Gates that were open during the day are closed now, manned by crew members who won't let you pass. "For your safety," they keep saying, "please wait here. We'll direct you shortly." "My cousin's husband is forward," Padraig argues. "We need to find him." All passengers in the forward sections are being evacuated. You'll meet them on deck. "But the gates are locked. How can they get out if the gates are locked?" The steward's face flickers, just for a moment, a crack in the professional mask. "The gates are being opened as needed, sir. Please remain calm. Everything is under control." Everything is under control. They keep saying that, like if they say it enough times, it will become true. But shortly never comes. The minutes tick by. The crowd grows larger. People are pushing now, pressing against the barriers, voices rising in anger and fear. A woman screams somewhere behind you. A child is crying. The stewards are losing control. You can see it happening in real time. And slowly, terribly, you start to notice that the floor is no longer level. The ship is tilting forward. It's subtle at first, barely noticeable. But the longer you stand there, the more obvious it becomes. Water bottles roll toward the bow. Loose items slide across tables. The whole world is shifting degree by degree toward the front of the ship, toward the iceberg wound, toward the water pouring in. Panic starts to spread through the crowd. People push against the barriers. Voices rise in fear and anger. The stewards do their best to maintain calm, but their faces have changed now. The professional masks are slipping. They know something you don't, something bad. There's another way, someone says. A man you don't recognize. Older, weathered face. One of the Scandinavians, maybe. Follow me. He leads a group of you through a side passage, through a door marked crew only, up a stairwell you've never seen before. The route is confusing, twisting, but he seems to know where he's going. Maybe he's been exploring. Maybe he's done this crossing before. You emerge on a deck you don't recognize. Second-class territory, maybe. The furniture is nicer, the carpet's thicker. Passengers are milling about here too, wearing life belts, looking lost. Up, the man says. Keep going up. The lifeboats are on the boat deck. You climb. More stairs. More corridors. Past staterooms with doors hanging open, belongings scattered across beds. Past confused stewards who let you pass without challenge. The chaos is spreading now. The order is breaking down, and then you're outside. On the boat deck, the highest point on the ship, where the lifeboats hang in their davits like strange white cocoons. The cold is brutal, far worse than earlier. Your breath freezes in your lungs. Your fingers go numb almost instantly. The temperature must be below freezing. The air burns your skin, cuts through your clothes like they're made of paper. But you barely notice because you're looking at the bow of the ship, at the forward deck, at the place where the prow should be rising toward the stars. It's underwater. The front of the Titanic is underwater. You can see it clearly in the starlight. The bow submerged, the deck sloping down into the black water. The ship is sinking. The unsinkable ship is sinking. For a moment your mind refuses to accept it. This can't be happening. This ship is 900 feet long, 45,000 tons of steel and iron and British engineering. Ships like this don't sink. They told you it couldn't sink. Everyone told you. But the water doesn't care what you were told. The water keeps rising. Around you, people are screaming, crying, praying. Officers are shouting orders, trying to load the lifeboats, trying to maintain some kind of control. But there's not enough room, not enough boats. You can see that immediately. There are hundreds of people up here and only a handful of boats being lowered into the water. You have to find Daniel. You promised Margaret. But Daniel is forward, in the section that's already flooding. If he's not up here already, if he didn't get out before the water came. You push through the crowd, looking for a familiar face, looking for Margaret, for Daniel, for Nora from Galway, for the Finnish man whose name you never learned, looking for anyone you know in this chaos of strangers. Padraig stays close behind you. His hand grips your arm so tight it hurts. You don't shake him off. You're grateful for the contact, grateful to know you're not alone. A lifeboat is being lowered nearby. Women and children only, the officers keep shouting. Women and children first. You see families being torn apart, wives separated from husbands, children pulled from fathers' arms. The screaming is constant now, a wall of sound that makes it hard to think. You find a spot near the railing and stop. Breathe. Try to process what's happening. The ship is sinking. You're going to die. No. Stop. Think. The lifeboats. You have to get on a lifeboat. But the boats are filling with women and children. Men are being held back. The officers have pistols drawn ready to shoot anyone who tries to rush the boats. This is how it ends, you think. This is how 700 dreams die. On a cold night in the middle of the ocean, on a ship that was supposed to be unsinkable. But you're not dead yet. You're still breathing, still standing. The ship is still afloat, even if it's listing badly now. There's time. There has to be time. Somewhere in the chaos a band is playing. Actual musicians up here on the deck, soaring away at their instruments like nothing is wrong. like this is just another evening concert. The music drifts across the screaming and the crying, strange and surreal. A melody you almost recognize. You look out at the ocean. The lifeboats are rowing away from the ship, tiny white shapes against the black water. Some of them are only half full. Room for more, but they're not coming back. They're afraid of being swamped by desperate swimmers. They're saving themselves. Can't blame them. You'd probably do the same. The deck lurches beneath your feet. The ship is settling faster now. The bow sinking, the stern rising. Soon there won't be a deck to stand on. Soon there will only be the water, cold and dark and endless. You think about your mother, your father, the farm you'll never see again, the life you'll never live in America. All those dreams, all those hopes, sinking with you into the Atlantic. But not yet. Not yet. You grab Padraig's arm. Come on, we're not dying here. You pull Padraig toward the stern. The deck is tilting more steeply now, the bow sinking faster, walking uphill. That's what it feels like. Climbing a wooden hill that's getting steeper by the minute. People are sliding past you, losing their footing on the wet planks, tumbling toward the water that's creeping higher and higher toward the lights. The lights are still on. That's the strangest thing. All this chaos, all this death, and the electric lights are still blazing. The engineers must still be down there keeping the power running, doing their jobs until the very end. You wonder if they know they're going to die. The stern rises as the bow sinks. Furniture breaks loose. Deck chairs tumble past you like leaves in a storm. A piano from somewhere, God knows where, slides across the deck and smashes through a railing. The sound of breaking glass and splintering wood fills the air, competing with the screaming. You hold onto a railing. Padraig holds on to you. The angle is getting worse. 40 degrees, 50. Your feet slip on the deck and you're hanging now, suspended by your grip, the dark water rushing up below you. The ship groans. A deep metallic shriek that seems to come from everywhere at once. Something inside the hull is breaking. Something massive. The lights flicker, go out, come back on, flicker again, and then the ship breaks. You feel it more than see it. A massive shudder, a crack that sounds like thunder. The deck beneath you lurches, and for a terrible moment you're weightless, falling, the world spinning around you. The stern drops back, levels out for just a moment. You slam against the deck, the impact driving the breath from your lungs. Padraig lands beside you, gasping, still holding your arm so tight you think he might break it. For a few seconds, you dare to hope. The stern is floating. The bow is torn away and sunk, but the stern is floating. Maybe it will stay afloat. Maybe rescue will come. Maybe you'll survive this after all. Then the stern begins to tilt again, rising. The bow section pulling it down from below, still connected by cables or pipes or God knows what. The angle increases, 60 degrees, 70. People are falling now, sliding down the deck, screaming as they plunge into the black water below. You can't hold on much longer. Your hands are numb from the cold. Your fingers won't obey you. The railing is slipping from your grasp, inch by inch, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. Cillian, Padraig's voice, barely audible over the screaming and the groaning of the ship. I can't hold on. Neither can you. Your grip fails. You slide down the deck, picking up speed, the wooden planks tearing at your clothes, and then there's nothing beneath you but air and cold and darkness. You hit the water. The cold is beyond anything you've ever experienced. Beyond cold, beyond pain. It's like being stabbed by 1,000 knives all at once. Your lungs seize. Your heart stutters. Every nerve in your body screams in protest. 28 degrees. That's what they'll say later. The water was 28 degrees Fahrenheit. Below freezing. Cold enough to kill you in minutes if you don't get out. Cold enough to stop your heart before you have time to drown. You can't breathe. That's the first thing you notice. Your chest is locked, frozen, refusing to work. Your body is in shock, shutting down, trying to protect itself from a threat it was never designed to survive. The gasp reflex hits you, forcing air out of your lungs, trying to force water in. You fight it. Clamp your mouth shut. Force yourself to stay calm when every instinct is screaming at you to panic. Move. You have to move. You force your arms to work. Force your legs to kick. The life belt is keeping you afloat, the cork vest doing its job, but floating isn't enough. You need to get out of this water. You need to find something to hold on to. You have minutes, maybe less. 15 at the outside if you're lucky. If you're strong. If God is feeling merciful tonight. The water around you is chaos. People everywhere, thrashing, screaming, grabbing at anything they can reach. Bodies bumping against you in the darkness. Hands clutching at your life belt, your arms, your face. Desperate people doing desperate things. A woman's face looms up in front of you, eyes wide with terror, mouth open in a scream that produces no sound. She grabs your shoulder and tries to climb onto you, to use you as a raft, and you feel yourself being pushed under. You push them away. You have to. If you let them drag you under, you both die. One of them grabs your ankle and pulls, and you kick free, the guilt already settling in your stomach like a stone. But survival isn't pretty. Survival is ugly and selfish and cold. "Padrig!" you shout, or try to shout. Your voice comes out as a croak, barely louder than a whisper. The cold is in your throat now, in your lungs, stealing your breath and your voice and your strength. You can't see him. You can't see anything. Just the darkness and the churning water and the shapes of other people struggling to stay alive. The ship is gone, slipped beneath the surface while you were falling. The largest ship in the world vanished in seconds, leaving nothing but wreckage and bodies and a spreading pool of debris. Something bumps against your leg. Wood. A piece of something. A door, maybe, or a section of deck. You grab it, pull yourself onto it, half out of the water. Your chest is still in the sea, but your head and shoulders are above, and that's enough. That's something. The cold is killing you. You can feel it happening. Your fingers have stopped working, your legs are numb, your thoughts are slowing down, becoming fuzzy and strange. Hypothermia, that's the word. Your body temperature dropping faster than it can recover. Death by degrees. You think about your mother, your father, the farm in Cork that you'll never see again, the sister in Boston who doesn't know yet that her brother is dying in the middle of the Atlantic. You think about America, all those dreams, all those plans, the new life you were going to build, gone now, sinking with the ship, freezing with your body. Around you, the screaming continues, hundreds of voices crying out in the darkness, calling for help, calling for God, calling for their mothers. The sound is like nothing you've ever heard, like nothing you ever want to hear again. And then slowly the screaming stops, not all at once, one voice at a time, the cold taking them, the water claiming them, the silence spreading across the sea like a blanket, until there's nothing left but the lapping of waves and the creak of floating wood. You're still alive. You don't know how, you don't know why, but you're still alive, and you're going to stay alive because you promised your mother you'd write to her from New York, and you're damn well going to keep that promise. Time passes. You don't know how much. The stars wheel overhead, indifferent to the suffering below. The cold gnaws at you, patient and relentless. You stop shivering at some point. That's bad, you know. That means your body has given up trying to warm itself. That means the end is close, but you don't give up. You can't. Not yet. A voice in the darkness, calling out. Someone else still alive, still fighting. Here, you try to shout. Over here. Your voice is barely a whisper, but somehow they hear you. Or maybe they just drift close by accident. A shape in the darkness clinging to a piece of wreckage just like you. A familiar shape. Padrig? Cillian. His voice is weak, broken, but alive. I thought you were gone. Not yet. You reach for him. Your fingers don't work, but you manage to hook your arm around his life belt, pull him closer, lash the two of you together with the length of rope from somewhere. If one of you goes under, the other will know. If one of you dies, the other won't be alone. You wait. The cold is inside you now, part of you. You've stopped feeling it as pain. It's just there, like the darkness, like the silence, a fact of existence, something to endure. Your body has stopped shivering. You know what that means. Read it somewhere, or heard it from someone. When you stop shivering, it means your body has given up trying to warm itself. It means the end is close. The hypothermia is winning. Your core temperature is dropping degree by degree, and soon your heart will slow, and your thoughts will fade, and you'll just slip away into the darkness. But not yet. Not yet. You press closer to Padrig, share what little warmth you have left. His breathing is shallow, ragged, but steady. He's alive. You're both alive. For now, that has to be enough. You think about the party, just a few hours ago, dancing and laughing and drinking whiskey while the band played, Eugene Daly's pipes wailing out jigs and reels, the Swedish girl whose name you never learned, the Italians doing their strange dance while everyone cheered, all those people, all that joy, and now most of them are dead, floating in the water around you, sinking to the bottom of the ocean 2 miles down, to rest on the seafloor until the end of time. You think about Margaret, her children. Did they make it to a lifeboat? Are they out there somewhere in the darkness, safe and warm while you freeze? You hope so. You pray so. Little William and Mary deserve to grow up, deserve to see America. You think about Daniel, Margaret's husband, forward with the other men when the ship started sinking. Did he get out? Did anyone get out from that section? The water came in so fast. The gates were closed. Maybe some of them made it. Maybe none of them did. You'll probably never know. Lights, far away, moving across the water. At first you think you're imagining it. Your mind playing tricks on you, creating hope where there is none. But Padrig sees it too, points with a hand that won't stop shaking. Boats, he whispers, lifeboats. They're coming back, some of them at least, looking for survivors, looking for anyone still alive in this graveyard of floating bodies. You try to shout. Nothing comes out. You try to wave. Your arm won't cooperate. All you can do is wait and hope and pray that they see you, that they're close enough, that they care enough to stop. The light gets closer. Voices now. People calling out, asking if anyone's alive. You try to answer. A sound comes out of your mouth, but you don't recognize it as your voice. Something broken, something barely human. But they hear you. Hands reach down, grab your life belt, pull you up, out of the water, into a boat that rocks dangerously under the weight of too many survivors. You don't remember climbing in. You don't remember anything except the sudden absence of the cold water, the rough wool of a blanket being wrapped around your shoulders, the face of a stranger looking down at you with concern and pity. Someone is rubbing your arms, your legs, trying to bring the blood back. It hurts. Everything hurts. The return of feeling is almost worse than the numbness. Your fingers and toes are on fire, burning with the cold that's trapped inside them. Padraig is beside you, alive. Barely, but alive. Someone is pouring something into his mouth. Whiskey, maybe, or brandy. Something to fight the cold from the inside. You feel liquid at your own lips. Drink without thinking. The burn in your throat is the first warm thing you've felt in hours. You're in lifeboat 14, Officer Lowe's boat. You'll learn that later. He went back. Most of the boats didn't. Most of the boats rowed away from the screaming and never returned. But Lowe went back, transferred his passengers to other boats, and returned to pull survivors from the water. Not many. By the time he got there, most of them were already dead. But some, a few, enough to matter. Right now, you don't know any of that. You don't know anything except that you're not in the water anymore. You're not going to freeze to death tonight. Against all odds, against all logic, against everything the cold Atlantic tried to do to you, you're going to live. The boat is full of other survivors, some conscious, some not. A few are crying. Most are silent, staring at nothing, their faces blank with shock. You understand. You feel the same way. Like something inside you is broken. Something that might never heal. The rowing resumes, oars dipping into the black water, pulling you away from the wreck site. Away from the floating bodies and the debris and the silence where the screaming used to be. Behind you, the Atlantic stretches empty to the horizon. No trace of the ship that was supposed to be unsinkable. No sign of the 700 dreams that sank with her. Just water and darkness and stars, indifferent to everything that's happened. You survived. You don't know how. You don't know why. But you survived, and now you have to figure out what that means, how to keep living when so many others died, how to carry the weight of this night for the rest of your life. The sky is still dark, hours until dawn, hours of drifting in an open boat, shivering under thin blankets, waiting for rescue that might or might not come. But you're alive. Padraig is alive, and somewhere out there, maybe Margaret and her children are alive too. Maybe enough of you made it to matter. Maybe enough of you survived to remember the ones who didn't. The boat drifts. Other survivors are talking, sharing what they saw, what they lost. A woman is weeping quietly, calling a name over and over. A man stares at the water with empty eyes, his lips moving in silent prayer. Everyone has a story. Everyone has someone they're missing. You don't talk, neither does Padraig. There are no words for what just happened. No way to describe watching the largest ship in the world disappear beneath the waves. No way to explain what it feels like to be in water so cold that death becomes a mercy. You close your eyes. The exhaustion is overwhelming now, pushing you down into darkness. You should stay awake. You know you should. The cold is still inside you, still dangerous. Sleep is where people die, they say. Sleep is where the hypothermia finishes what the water started. But your body won't listen. It's done fighting for tonight. It kept you alive through the impossible, and now it needs to rest. The last thing you hear before unconsciousness takes you is the sound of oars in the water, the creak of wood, The quiet voices of survivors too stunned to cry. Somewhere in the distance someone is singing. A hymn maybe, or a lullaby. Something soft and sad and strangely comforting. And then nothing. Just darkness and silence and the long wait for morning. Light, that's what wakes you. Grey light filtering through your eyelids. Dawn. You made it to dawn. You open your eyes and for a moment you don't know where you are. The sky above you is pale, washed out, streaked with pink at the edges. The air is cold, bitterly cold. Your body aches in ways you didn't know were possible. Then you remember. The ship, the water, the cold that tried to kill you. You sit up, or try to. Your muscles don't want to cooperate. Everything is stiff and sore and wrong. But you manage it eventually, pulling yourself upright against the side of the lifeboat. The ocean stretches out around you in every direction. Calm now, almost peaceful, like nothing happened here. Like 1,500 people didn't die in this water just a few hours ago. And the ice, God, the ice, it's everywhere. Icebergs scattered across the horizon like mountains, some of them huge, towering things, others smaller, barely breaking the surface. The rising sun catches them and they glow, pink and gold and white, beautiful, terrible. One of those killed the ship, one of those killed all those people. Padraig is beside you, still breathing. His face is pale, his lips tinged blue, but he's alive. His eyes flutter open and meet yours. Neither of you speaks. What is there to say? The other survivors in the boat are stirring too. Some of them. Others don't move at all. Died in the night, probably. The cold finishing what the water started. A woman near the bow is weeping, cradling something against her chest. A child's coat. Just the coat. The child isn't there. You look away. On the horizon, something moves. A shape. Dark against the pale sky. A ship. Someone in the boat sees it too, points, cries out. Others look up, their hollow eyes suddenly bright with something that might be hope. The shape gets larger, closer. You can see the smoke from its funnel now, a dark smear against the dawn. A green flare shoots up from the ship's deck. Then another. Signals. They're coming. Help is coming. The woman with the child's coat stops weeping, stares at the approaching ship with an expression you can't read. Relief, maybe. Or maybe just the knowledge that rescue won't bring back what she's lost. The ship is called Carpathia. You'll learn that later. A Cunard liner, not White Star. Smaller than Titanic. Less fancy. But right now, it's the most beautiful thing you've ever seen. It takes hours. The Carpathia has to navigate through the same ice field that killed Titanic, moving slowly, carefully. Every iceberg a reminder of what happens when you go too fast, but it gets there, it reaches you, and one by one, the lifeboats row toward it. Your boat is one of the last. By the time you reach the Carpathia's side, the sun is fully up. The ship's hull rises above you like a cliff face. Rope ladders hang down. Doorways have been opened near the waterline. Crew members lean out, reaching down to help. Getting aboard is harder than it should be. Your hands still don't work properly. Your legs are weak, shaky, barely able to hold your weight. But the crew is patient. They've been doing this for hours. They know how to handle people who've spent the night in freezing water waiting to die. Hands grab you, pull you up, guide you through a doorway into the warmth of the ship's interior. The heat hits you like a wall. Your skin prickles, your eyes water. After hours in the cold, ordinary room temperature feels like standing next to a fire. Someone wraps a blanket around your shoulders. Someone else presses a cup into your hands. Hot coffee. You drink it without thinking, the heat spreading through your chest, your stomach thawing you from the inside. Padraig is beside you, still alive, still breathing. You made it. Both of you. Somehow, against all odds, you made it. The Carpathia's passengers have given up their cabins, their clothes, their food. Everything they have, they're sharing with the survivors. A woman your mother's age takes your arm and leads you to a chair, sits you down, brings you soup and bread and another blanket. Her eyes are kind. She doesn't ask questions, doesn't pry. Just takes care of you like you're her own son. You eat. The first food you've had since dinner on Titanic. It tastes like nothing. Everything tastes like nothing right now. But you eat anyway, because your body needs it, because you're alive and you need to stay that way. The morning passes in a blur. More survivors being brought aboard. People searching for loved ones, calling out names, hoping for answers that usually don't come. Sometimes there are reunions. A husband finding his wife. A mother finding her children. Those moments are bright spots in all the grief. Proof that some stories have happy endings. Most don't. You look for Margaret. For William and Mary. You search the deck. The dining rooms, the makeshift medical areas where the doctors are treating survivors for frostbite and shock. You ask everyone you see, have you seen a woman with 2 children? Irish, from County Galway. The boy's about 7, full of energy. The girl is younger, quiet, always holding a piece of rope. Nobody knows, nobody remembers. There were so many women with children. So many boats, so much chaos. They might be here somewhere, they might not. You never find them. Daniel, Margaret's husband, isn't among the survivors either. The men in the forward section, the ones who saw the water flooding in, who tried to find their way through corridors they'd never walked before, through gates that may or may not have been locked, upstairs marked crew only. Most of them didn't make it. The statistics will show that later. Third-class men had the worst survival rate of anyone on the ship. Less than 1 in 6 made it off alive. The Carpathia doesn't linger at the wreck site. Once the last lifeboat is aboard, Captain Rostron turns the ship toward New York. 3 days away. 3 days to process what happened. 3 days to grieve. You spend most of that time on deck staring at the ocean, not thinking about anything in particular, just existing, breathing, being alive when so many others aren't. Padraig stays close. Neither of you talks much. There's nothing to say that the silence doesn't say better. Other survivors gather in small groups, sharing stories, sharing grief. Some of them are angry, talking about the lifeboats that rowed away half empty, the crew members who wouldn't let people through, the gates that were closed when they should have been open. You listen, but don't join in. Anger takes energy you don't have right now. On the 3rd day, you see New York. The Statue of Liberty rises out of the harbour, green and distant, holding a torch. The symbol of everything you came here for. Freedom, opportunity, a new life. You thought you'd feel something when you saw it. Joy, maybe. Relief. Instead, you feel nothing. Just tired. Just empty. Just glad the journey is over. The Carpathia docks at night, in the rain. Thousands of people are waiting at the pier. Families of passengers hoping their loved ones survived. Reporters looking for stories. Curious onlookers who want to see the survivors of the famous disaster. The electric lights on the pier are blinding after 3 days at sea. First class gets off first. Of course they do. Even after everything, they get priority. Second class follows. Then, finally, third class. But not right away. Third class has to wait while immigration officials check their papers, make sure they're healthy, make sure they're not carrying diseases, make sure they're fit to enter the country. It takes hours. You sit in the Carpathia's dining room wrapped in borrowed clothes, waiting for a man with a clipboard to decide whether you're allowed to set foot on American soil. The same country you almost died trying to reach. The same country that built a statue promising to welcome the tired and poor and huddled masses. That country wants to make sure you're not too tired, too poor, too huddled before they let you in. They let you in, eventually, around midnight. Nearly 3 hours after the first-class passengers walked off into the arms of their waiting families, you step onto the pier in the rain, 19 years old, no money, no belongings except the clothes on your back, and nobody waiting for you. But you're alive. That has to count for something. The weeks that follow are hard. Finding work, finding a place to sleep, writing to your family in Ireland, telling them you survived, waiting for their reply, watching the newspapers fill with stories about Titanic, the investigations, the blame, the questions nobody wants to answer. The British inquiry happens in May. They call witnesses, officers, crew members, first-class passengers who saw things, heard things, remember things. They examine the ship's design, the iceberg warnings that were ignored, the lifeboats that weren't filled. They don't call a single third-class passenger. Not one. All those people who were in the corridors, who couldn't find their way out, who waited for instructions that never came, who died by the hundreds while the first-class passengers strolled onto lifeboats with the room to spare. None of them get to tell their story. None of them get to say what really happened down in Scotland Road, in those winding passageways, behind those gates that may or may not have been locked. The inquiry concludes that the ship's design didn't give any class an advantage in reaching the lifeboats. That's what they say. That third class had just as much chance as anyone else. It's a lie. You know it's a lie. Everyone who was there knows it's a lie. The lifeboats were on the boat deck. Third class was 3 decks down. Through corridors marked crew only. Past gates that crew members kept closed for your safety. First class could walk to the boats in minutes. Third class had to fight their way through a maze they'd never seen before, in the dark, while the ship was sinking. But the inquiry doesn't want to hear that. The inquiry wants to close the books, assign some blame, make some recommendations about lifeboats and radio watches, and move on. The inquiry doesn't want to talk about class, about how the rich survived and the poor drowned, about how the shipping lines treated steerage passengers like cargo, warehoused them in the lower decks, and then didn't bother to show them the way out when the ship started to sink. The era was supposed to be different. The new ships were supposed to be better, cleaner, more humane. And they were in a way. The cabins were nicer than the dormitories on the old coffin ships. The food was better. The treatment was more respectful. But when it came down to it, when the ship was sinking and there weren't enough lifeboats, when it was life and death and every minute counted, third class was still third class. The people with money got saved. The people without money got drowned. That's the truth the inquiry didn't want to admit. That's the truth that got buried along with 1,500 bodies at the bottom of the Atlantic. You think about this sometimes, late at night, when you can't sleep, when the memories come back and you're in the water again, in the cold, listening to the screaming fade into silence. You think about Eugene Daly and his pipes, the music he played as the ship left Queenstown, the dancing at the party on Sunday night, all that joy, all that hope, and then the ice and the dark water. You think about the Swedish couple, Eric and Ingrid, newlyweds, heading to Minnesota to start their life together. You never found out if they survived. Probably not. Most of the couples got separated, women to the boats, men left behind. You think about Nora from Galway, the grandmother who'd crossed the Atlantic 3 times before, who knew how ships worked, who'd seen good ones and bad ones. This was supposed to be the best one, the unsinkable one. You think about Margaret and her children, William with his boundless energy, Mary with her quiet eyes and her piece of rope. You hope they made it. You hope they're somewhere in America right now, safe and warm, building the life they dreamed about, but you don't know. You'll never know. The records are incomplete. The names are misspelled. Half the third-class passengers were never properly documented at all. They died anonymous and they stay anonymous, their stories unwritten, their memories fading year by year. That's why this matters. That's why you're hearing this story tonight. Not because it's exciting, not because there's something thrilling about a ship hitting an iceberg and sinking, but because there were real people on that ship. People like you. People who wanted simple things, safety, comfort, a chance to build something better. People who boarded a ship in Ireland or England or Sweden or Italy, carrying everything they owned, heading for a country they'd never seen, hoping for a future they could barely imagine. People who danced and laughed and ate their meals in a dining room where stewards wore numbered badges so you could report them for being rude. People who marvelled at electric lights and running water. People who wrote letters home saying this is the most beautiful ship in the world. People who deserved better than they got. So here you are, in your bed, in your warm room, with your pillow and your blankets, and your glass of water on the nightstand. Safe, comfortable, alive. The ocean is far away. The ice is far away. The cold that killed 1,500 people is just a story now, just words, just something that happened to someone else a long time ago. But it happened. And somewhere, 2 miles down at the bottom of the Atlantic, the ship is still there, broken in 2, covered in rust, home to fish and crabs and the slow decay of everything that used to be beautiful. The grand staircases, the dining saloons, the smoking rooms and the general rooms and the cabins with their thin wooden walls, Scotland Road, all of it gone, preserved in the cold and the dark where no one will ever walk those corridors again. The people who died there are gone too, their bones scattered on the seafloor or dissolved into the water itself, but their stories remain, their hopes remain, the dreams they carried with them across the ocean, those remain, and that's worth remembering, that's worth telling. So tonight, as you drift off to sleep, think about them. Think about the third-class passengers of the Titanic, the immigrants, the workers, the families chasing a better life. Think about what they went through, what they hoped for, what they lost, and be grateful for your warm bed, for your safety, for the fact that you get to wake up tomorrow and keep living, keep dreaming, keep building whatever life you want to build. They didn't get that chance, but you do. Don't waste it. Your eyes are heavy now. Your breathing is slow. The story is over and sleep is coming, soft and warm and safe. Let it come. Let the darkness wrap around you like a blanket. Let your thoughts drift away, out across the water, back through time, to a ship that was supposed to be unsinkable, to people who were supposed to reach New York, to dreams that were supposed to come true. They're at peace now, all of them, the ones who made it and the ones who didn't. The ocean has been still for 100 years, and the dead have been sleeping, and the world has moved on. But we remember. We always remember. Good night, sleep well, and dream of better crossings.